1. It's 6:01. And call the city council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Edwards,
Here.
Councilmember Hill,
Here.
Councilmember Luna Leal,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas. Here. Councilmember Spieth,
Here.
and Mayor Green.
Here. All right, now we have the optional pledge of allegiance, 1 moment of silence. Of the United States. And thank you. Now we have approval of the agenda. Are there any subtractions or additions? Please don't add anything. Right. Would entertain a motion to approve the agenda then.
Luna Lab moves to approve the agenda.
Housekeeping matters.
Yes, one quick one.
Yes.
Tomorrow's Lake County or Leadville Lake County Regional Housing Authority meeting has changed venues. We are no longer at the library. We will be going to CMC room 121 in the new Discovery Building.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? All right, moving right along. Public comments about items not on the agenda. Yes, sir. Please approach the podium, give us your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Greg Lobby, 136 Lewis Avenue. I would say that Leadville did do times of snowfall that have exceeded this, but not very many. I mean, we had an extraordinary amount of snowfall in about 4 days. And put in Snowmageddon. However, I would say this from years of experience, it's very, very difficult to keep up, the street department to keep up under these circumstances. I can tell you also from experience, they probably will never get all the snow removed before the end of the year. And I just want that to be understood, and and I only know that because I've been through it a number of times before. So I don't want the expectations from the public to be any different than what the reality is, and sometimes those are two different things. So I commend the street department. I think they did a great job under the circumstances. Also keeping in mind, they're CDL qualified drivers, so they have to follow Department of Transportation guidelines, which means they can't work more than a 12-hour shift, and they can extend to 14, but they can't go more than 60 hours in 7 days. So it puts a lot of stress on you as an organization to follow those timelines and still take care of the town. And I think they did a good job, but they're gonna have to work out for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Steve? Wait, let me reset my timer. Okay,
My name is Steve Preston, actually, at 131 East Third Street. Mayor Labbe, ex-mayor Labbe spoke about the street department. It would be nice if we could hire 1 or 2 more street department people for these, periods when, they need extra personnel. And going on an old trail that I keep wandering here, I think it would be nice if we would have a police department that was up to snuff of representing, the safety and things like that. Where it seems to be strangling right now. Why we don't have a street department has been an erosion, a slow erosion. It seems more interested in making money and saving money than protecting the citizens. So, just having said that, I would like to see the police department revitalized and have some leeway for the street department to utilize people that are possibly retired or that would have the skills that would be willing to pitch in when there's, as employees, when there is a need for Thank you kindly.
Thank you. All right. Mrs. Kelly.
I already wrote a letter, but I'm speaking tonight to endorse Shannon Grant for continued service on Leadville Town Council. While we share common concerns regarding the future of Leadville, such as parking and short-term rentals, it is for her values that I primarily endorse her. Shannon possesses values such as integrity, honesty, commitment to transparency, dedication to fact-finding and due diligence, following facts and being a data-driven, rational decision maker. While these values have always been important in my life, I came to realize in August of 2019 just how important these values are as they relate to leadership positions in Lake County and Leadville. My husband, and consequently myself, went through an experience that could have ruined the rest of our lives and definitely changed our lives forever. What happened, in my opinion, was the result of people in positions of leadership and power who completely lacked these important values that I previously mentioned. I feel a great deal of anxiety that people who lack those values can and do end up in positions of leadership in Leadville Lake County, and that they will have the power to make decisions that will affect my life. I know that Shannon will demonstrate these important values and qualities as a member of Leadville City Council, and that anyone who seeks such a position should possess.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? I'm sorry, I cannot see you on the other side of the post. Oh, Bruce, come on up.
My name is Bruce Kelly. I'm Stacy Kelly's husband. We live at 220 East Sixth Street. And I'm also here to endorse Shannon Grant for a continuation of Leadville City conflict. So I'd like to piggyback on my wife's station statements. I agree with everything she noted. We've known Shannon for at least 13 years as organizers and coaches of the high school mountain bike team. I was lucky enough to have her two high school boys for over 5 years. During that time, I watched Shannon raise both boys and their sister, who was also in high school. I also got to know Shannon not only as a mother, but as a person. I believe our government officials, local, state, and national, need to be of the highest integrity, honesty, and open transparency. I think Shannon is the candidate that fulfills these qualities the best. Public officials decide on critical issues daily, and we need persons who not only listen, but hear what the community members say and feel. Shannon will hear and make informed decisions that benefit the many, not the few. Thanks for your time, and like I said, we endorse Shannon.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? Come on up, Mr. Gaffney.
Hi, I'm Jane Gowan. I live at 323 7th Street, and I'm here tonight to ask City Council to review and look and ask questions, and hopefully maybe you would agree to do a work session about the Leadville Lake County Animal Shelter and the it sounds like we're coming up on an IGA, and I would like to learn more about some of the, I noticed on the agenda, there's some new partnerships that may be in the pipeline. And I guess I just would like to, encourage council to, if there are community members that would like to be involved, because the animal shelter is really very important to this community. And, yes, I've been involved with it for many years. I volunteered probably for 20 years. And so, it's a cause near and dear to my heart. And I would like to involve the public, to see our shelter is antiquated and it is small. And we, on a good day, you have 12 kennels, but if you have big dogs and they need a double kennel, all of a sudden your capacity is cut in half. So there are just a lot of little things that I think that many members of our community that have either walked dogs or participated in feeding animals or filling in, would like, perhaps would like to be a part of this and explore the different options that it sounds like that we may be looking at because of the IGA with the county and the city, as well as some new partnerships, and then how that impacts Planned Parenthood Leadville, who has historically always, helped with spay and neuters, and all of us in the community, I think, have benefited from that as well. So I would appreciate council's review of the information and possibly consider putting it on your work agendas and notifying the public if anyone else is interested. Thank you very much, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you. All right, yes. Coach Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Harrelson, and I'm here on behalf of PB Swims. PB Swims is going to put a citizens initiative question on the 2024 November ballot, asking voters if they will approve a swimming pool tax, a sales tax where revenue would go to help renovate, maintain, operate, and eventually replace our swimming pool. And members of PB Swims would like to meet with city council for a work session because there have to be some agreements in place to implement a tax if voters do approve that. So I just wanted to give you a heads up and let you know that call me anytime, and if I can get on a work session agenda for PB Swims, that would be great. And thank you for serving.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room, public comment for items not on the agenda? Anyone online? Okay. Sorry, let me switch my screen back to where I was, back to the agenda.
Department reports.
Yes, thank you. Know where it went. Department reports. Lori, I'm gonna let you take it with city administrator report while I try to find my agenda.
Okay, great. Well, the first thing I want to start with is I want to thank our streets department. I know this weekend. Oh, and before PB Swims leaves, I was just gonna say, you can contact me and we can talk about getting you on an upcoming agenda.
Thanks, I've got the carpool waiting in the car, so that's fine.
So yes, it was a long storm, and one of the things I wanted to just point out for sort of education about our streets department, I think this is really helpful for people understanding, knowing what we can do and when. So we have one shift. And, I think sometimes, like this weekend, it would have been great to have 2 shifts out there working, but we don't have the staff to do that. So we have one shift. And when the snow gets to be, heavy enough, they will be up at probably 2 a.m. plowing. And so they do that because there's less cars to navigate around, less people to navigate around. It's a lot easier for them to maneuver with the big equipment. So what happens is they'll be out at 2 a.m. And then when their shift is over, if it keeps snowing like it did this weekend, by the end of the next day, you know, say it's like 6 or 7 o'clock. In a perfect world, we would send out another shift to clear the roads, but they're not gonna be out again until 2 AM the next night. And so if you get questions about what and when, we have one shift, and if the snow is really bad, like it was this weekend, they're out at 2 AM. They'll clear as much as they can, they go to bed, they get up, and they'll do it again, which is exactly what happened this weekend. The second part of that is, what is the priority? And so we get questions all the time, my streets, you know, this hasn't been taken care of. The priorities are the arterials, so schools, hospitals, major streets and roads, those get first priority. And then after that, there's a system, the city breaks up, you know, we have different crews and they set out and they'll work on the streets themselves. The last thing that gets done are the alleys. So if someone is talking about my alley hasn't been taken care of, that ends up being a later priority. So for, and I'll give the update for the streets department because Tony was, streets department manager was here tonight, but he hasn't gotten any sleep. So I thanked him and excused him. But those things, when you're getting questions of what's happening when, that's the general idea of what's happening. We are short-staffed, to Mr. Prestash's point. We have run an ad in the paper, requesting applications for, you know, streets workers. Our labor pool is tough right now. I'll tell you, we ended up offering $1,000 signing bonus, and we're still really, you know, as far as applications, we haven't gotten people who have a CDL license and or qualifications. So it's a tough market right now. We have not been fully staffed in the streets department except for last year in a really long time. So I would love to have a fully staffed streets department. The issue is, even with $1,000 signing bonus, we're not getting qualified applicants. I would also, with regard to city hiring, I would like to introduce Paige Behill. She is our new human resources director. And Paige comes to us from the county, which is fantastic. She has local government experience. She was previously working in finance with the county and will be a great partner for our finance director. And also, just lucky for us, her passion is human resources. So she's working towards a degree in that as well as her certification. She has jumped right in and we're working on some great projects. She will update you on those. But Paige, I didn't tell you this part, but is there anything you would like to say about yourself? I didn't tell you I was gonna put you on the spot. Surprise.
Not particularly. I was born and raised in Leadville, so I'm native. I did choose to move back to Leadville after leaving for a few years. I didn't have to, because I love it and I love the mountains, and it's home. So that's kind of all I really have to add as far as my position here, outside of the job itself.
Great, so we're happy to have Paige on board. A couple other exciting things. I think, you know, I've been talking about this for a long time, that we would like to have better communication with our citizens and what we're doing in city government, rather than relying on the newspaper or people's attention span to watch our council meetings on YouTube. I thank the 4 people that regularly do that. But we're gonna do a newsletter. And so you met one of the prior meetings, Andrew Cummins. He is working on he's got a draft of a newsletter. So it's gonna be pretty simple. We're hoping to get it out in January, but it's gonna be about 2 pages, just some updates on various departments, things going on. And so I think it's a good idea to push out some information that we can, you know, again, possibly about what streets does, where, when, and why, and you know, business licenses, those things that I announce here, but sometimes, like I said, our coverage in the newspaper depends on how interesting it is, and some of these more routine matters don't necessarily get covered by the newspaper. So we had a design meeting today for the website, so we are going to be redoing the website on the same lines of ease of information, ease of finding things. How do I do things with the city? So we are working on that. That may be a little ways out, but we're pretty excited about those 2 new forms to be able to communicate with the public. I wanted to congratulate Acting Chief Dan Breyer. He was appointed to the E911 Board of Directors and has been attending the meetings. He's a fantastic addition to that, just given his experience as an emergency responder. So I appreciate him serving on that board. Wanted a couple other things to remind the council that we have council member training next Tuesday, the 23rd. That will be at 6 p.m. here with our city attorney. And then I wanted to check in on one thing. I was thinking because it's it's a work session training meeting, we might want to have snacks. So if anyone has any dietary restrictions, will you please let me know? Otherwise, we're thinking of getting everyone sandwiches. A couple other things, property taxes. So we received we were supposed to get the information on January 3rd regarding the new certification evaluation from the Lake County Assessor. We ended up getting it probably like closer to the 10th, I think. But we have not yet had sufficient time to analyze that. As you know, we certified our mills at the same level they were the prior year. So the question is, do we, I think reducing the mills is probably a sort of a shotgun approach to property tax relief. So I've requested that we have a meeting with the mayor and Councilmember Luna Leal because he had a suggestion about property tax relief that's more targeted to people and maybe potentially through full circle. So once we've gotten a chance to analyze the numbers and see the valuation for single family homes as opposed to all property, because it looks like a quick estimate looks like tax revenue dropped. A net assessed value dropped about $2.5 million from the original estimate we received in August. So we'll need to do a little bit more numbers crunching on that, but I wanted to update you on that. Let's see, the last thing is the IGA with the county regarding the animal shelter. We are probably overdue for a look at that. I don't know that we have that scheduled for any upcoming meeting, but absolutely based upon your input, we will definitely involve the public when we get to that point. So since I've been here, I've found probably, I don't know, once a month an IGA we need to update. So we'll continue to work through those. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Sampson?
Yeah, going back to the streets department, is there a possibility to hire subcontractors to supplement staff?
Yes, and we have explored that, do you know, what they were all doing this weekend though, is they were moving snow for other people. So we can do that. I think what we would need to do is get with them in advance and figure out a system where, we could get their time instead of maybe, having them already be booked at that point. Because, I think 2 shifts, a lot of the year so far, we wouldn't have needed 2 shifts. So filling it in on a contract basis, I think is definitely the way to go.
Maybe at least for Harrison. I don't know that the residential streets would require that level of effort, but.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if the subcontractors have the nifty little
I don't know.
plow with the
Right.
snow blower into the dump truck. That was a pretty slick operation
Yeah.
this morning, watching them clear.
Yeah, oh, and that's the last thing I forgot to mention. So in the priority of what gets done, so now the priority is moving the piles. And as our former mayor indicated, that will be a large task, but removing the large piles of snow. If we get more snow, rewind, hit play. Start plowing when we get to several inches and then start removing the piles. So as our former mayor mentioned, there was one year where, the streets department never did get ahead of it until the end of the season because there was so much snow, and we'll see if that's the case. I'm kind of enjoying the Matterhorn in front of my house. I'm gonna put a little train on it, sell tickets.
Yeah, how else do the kids play jump over the fence games? Okay. All right, is there anybody here from the police department?
I have one more question.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry,
Okay.
leaping ahead.
So in regards to the streets department as well, and I guess it more general as well for any department at this point, but especially for the streets department, I wonder if at some point during the summer when we're not as busy, well, obviously don't have school during it, but we could be more intentional in being partners with the school district to see if there could be a job program for seniors who are graduating to directly hire them into the streets department, if that's something they're interested in. Which I imagine there's at least one kid who would be interested in, so.
That would be fantastic, and we've talked about this before, about, you know, our own population and getting them into knowing what careers are available here and getting, so. Absolutely, if you connect me, because we do have an intern right now in the city, and that's the planning department, I, credit our planning director for doing that, but I would love to have more partnerships like that, so.
Sure.
Let me know who we can get in touch with.
I can do that for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we all know that the contact, because I was wondering about the use of an intern with the street department to help relieve some of just the tedious work for events. And maybe not drag our staff down so much with all of the signage and. That, but
Yeah, and I definitely think there's plenty of, I mean, with some safety sensitive positions, obviously, there are things we're not gonna let volunteer do. But I think, do we have the aliens from the mall joining us? So I think we definitely, there are projects, the little planters around town that no one knows who maintains. We generally sometimes maintain those just to make Harrison look nice. So I'm sure we can put together enough projects for someone
that's true.
that don't involve dangerous equipment that their parents would object to.
Let's go.
I also wonder if the school district bus drivers would be good hiring pool if we could customize their hours, because they tend to drive in the morning and the afternoon. And then a lot of them I know need other fill-in work to fill out their income, so they probably wouldn't be available for the 2 a.m. shift, but maybe they could be available midday to help, and they would have CDLs.
As long as they wouldn't be exceeding the number of hours that they could drive. The other issue is,
Cause it'd be total, not per,
it's basically a wait time.
yeah.
The other, that would be great. The other thing is we would need to figure out teaching them how to use heavy equipment.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, but let me know. We're open. I think some positions, we definitely word of mouth is really the way that we find candidates. So if there are people word of mouth, let them please contact me or Tony, our streets department manager. And, obviously we're in a place where we're wanting to make something work, so.
Any other questions for Ms. Simonson? All right. Is there anyone here from the police department for reports? Or just what we have in the packet?
A couple, things I wanted to address, Acting Chief Byard, if he's not here, it's only because he's on call, because generally he, likes to be on standby for these things. Couple things about, as I've addressed about snow removal, we did receive it looks like a letter from a merchant in town. Now you know about the system of snow removal and the fact that we only have one shift. So the other issue is the question of some vandalism, and without getting into the specifics of that, we are on it, and there is progress. I can update that merchant directly with the information, but it is not essentially completely without action, let's put it that way.
All right. Moving right along, fire. Kind of,
are we done with PD?
we don't really have,
May I ask a couple of questions about PD?
sure.
How long can the acting chief serve as acting chief?
So, is, as far as I understand, as long as he's able to serve. So, he's our point of contact with, police officers, standards and training. And so he's let them know that he's our acting chief at this point.
Okay, and do you know of any personal timeline on his end of how long he can do it, or?
No, he's been in this position multiple times previously, and I just appreciate his willingness to step up and see the department through these. He's been, like I said, fantastic in stepping in with some of the, leadership, like I said, the E911 board and working, with the other update I forgot to mention with the police department, acting chief Byers ensured that all of our officers met and exceeded their, post-training certification for this year. And he's been working on some grant applications for us. He's been working on some scheduling for ski touring. You'll hear that update, from, Mr. Council tonight, but he's been doing a lot of that leadership work and you know, I just am grateful that he's doing it and he right now has the bandwidth to do it.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? Do we have any update on the fingerprint machine, if it's,
Oh, no, but I can ask. The sign isn't on the door anymore.
okay, it's still in the packet as being down.
Oh, okay, let me double check on that. I will.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the police department? Okay. Fire department.
So, Chief Daly is, on some well-deserved leave. I think you've seen from his report that, the new equipment is working out really, really well. So, the Type 3 went on, I think, 3 deployments this summer, and for, the newer council members, the fire department is requested on occasionally to provide assistance. And it's usually through the federal government that we're asked to, you know, there's a board where you can put up your availability. So if we don't have the availability to help out, we wouldn't put ourselves on the board as being available. You can put your equipment and your person power on board. And then it's potential you'd be called out. The nice thing about it for us is that for like the Type 3, it's a new piece of equipment. And so when it gets deployed with our people, we are reimbursed and actually make money on that deployment. So it is fantastic training on a new piece of equipment. And in the end, so that money goes, that we get from those deployments goes into the fire fund balance. It doesn't go into the operating budget of the city, it goes in the fire fund balance. That pie of money can be used for capital improvements and training. So it basically goes back into building up the department. So as you saw, that piece of equipment's been on deployment. We are looking at a new Type 6, so you may remember, Chief Daly will probably come in and show you his capital improvement plan. We're several years behind on equipment. I would say we're in a great position for a city of our size, but we're several years behind on a couple pieces of equipment, and the Type 6 is one of the ones that we would really like to replace. And so we put out an RFP and received a couple bids. The fire management board met and decided on a piece of equipment from, Mayor, can you remind me who did we
It was
agree?
like the,
BME, that's right. So it's the same company who did the Type 1 and Type 3. So I feel like we have a fire department where we have good personnel and I feel like we're getting in the right equipment. So, and as always, he's got great updates on their training and their own career development. So I'm happy to answer any questions or ones I can answer, I'm happy to pass along.
questions on the fire department.
How have things changed with the second station being open?
Well, so we've got the reserves there, right? So the city was renting a house in town for our firefighters, so the reserves are there. There's the bays are being used for equipment. We've got an agreement to share some of the bay space with some of the other emergency responders. I would say on the need to be improved is we have still a few glitches, electrical, a few things we need to. I don't know what you would say, hiccups with the new building. So I know Chief Daly's been working with the contractor out there to fix a few of those little glitches, but otherwise. It's going well.
Does it have another team down there? Is there a team staffed in our fire station here and a team down there simultaneously, or how does that work?
So that's what you've put in the budget for 2024 is to hire the supervisory staff so we can have the staff down there.
Okay. How many positions about would that be?
I think it's just a supervisory position at this point. So I think that was sort of the hurdle was us
He's
being.
another engineer.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, just one. So the fire department's just adding in the budget, the administrative assistant position, which the ad is going out.
Last week.
Oh, great. So that's great. So get that word out too. The fire department's looking for an administrative assistant. That person will assist with some of the grant writing. There's some, just sent Chief Daly one. There's some more federal grant money out there. So administrative assistant position and the engineer's position were put in that 2024 budget.
Other questions on the fire department? Okay, human resources.
One I don't have to do.
I'll take over. So I've been in this position for 2 weeks now, so I've jumped into some open projects. Wage study that we're doing with a third party, I have to jump in and, really communicate some updated information. The wage study is with similar municipalities in Colorado in terms of population, rural characteristics, organization size, those good things, so that we can kind of compare our current wages to the market and try to help with budgeting for next year and long-range planning as well. Another thing is the employee handbook update. We should have a complete rough draft done in about 2 months. And then we'll go over a time or two again, Lori and I, and then it'll be up for city council review. And now, given the time of year, I have the workers' compensation audit due at the beginning of February, and then a couple of other things, personnel file audit, just making sure things are in compliance. And another big priority of mine will be recruitment efforts, as I've heard is actually kind of everyone's concern and priority, and the police chief, is again, gonna be a delicate effort, so I definitely wanna make sure to put some thought into that and, be thoughtful about how we recruit a police chief, and get something that would be more sustainable for us. Otherwise, that's kind of what I jumped into and where I'm looking, and no other further updates at this time.
That's quite a bit. Armed with the knowledge that Paige has only been in this position for 2 weeks, are there any questions for? Okay. Then let us move ahead to the animal shelter. How do we have a lot of departments all of a sudden? It feels like it's wonderful.
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention, I did see Victor had his hand raised during the community comment portion, so I don't know if I'm fine to waive my time briefly if he needs to talk or however that needs to happen.
Oh, no, not at all. I didn't
Okay.
have my hand raised. That was just a
Okay.
mistake.
My apologies.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Alrighty, so we have our December quick stats here. So we had 4 surrenders. We did have a wait list for surrenders, but unfortunately we did have animals on hold and several kennels back to back, so we were over capacity and we're not able to take additional surrenders. We did have 4 city impounds, 1 county impound. We had 8 holds. Of those animals, either through the impounds or the holds, 6 of those needed their rabies vaccine. 7 of them needed their licenses. So 1 had their rabies vaccine, but not their license. And then we had 9 of those animals returned to their owners, 6 adoptions, 2 euthanasias. 1 was a medical dog and one was a bite quarantine dog that was on hold for a mauling. In 2023, we had a total of 301 animals. And then off to the right there, that is our shelter animal count statistics. So that little bar graph shows overall month to month our intake of canines and felines. And then we do have a January spay neuter clinic. We're hoping it's January, but we're not quite sure. We had a Colorado rescue reach out to us. They received grant funds for spay and neuter. They didn't need them and were allowed to share them. So they picked our community to receive them. So they are paying for public spay and neuter options. We then have a vet clinic who has volunteered their time and their equipment. And then there's another organization who's actually volunteered to do transport. So people that aren't able to drive their animals down to Denver will meet that transport team. They'll pick up the animals and take them down to the vet clinic. And then we are actively working on finalizing our 2024 calendar for events and future things.
Questions for animal shelter? I have one. When you are over capacity and are unable to take an additional surrender, what are the options for those people?
We put them on a surrender wait list, and then we connect them with shelters that are nearby, as well as those in Denver. With having a larger adoption population, they're able to get animals in and out of their facilities quicker. So we refer them to Eagle County, Summit County, and Ark Valley.
So those shelters are willing to take an out-of-county animal if they have capacity?
Yes, they do. We partner with them. So we've been able to build partnerships and new networks to create this support system. And so they can't always take the animals that are in need of surrender. Unfortunately, as they probably since the fall, sheltering has been pretty overwhelmed. So most facilities are very full. January currently is very, very slow for adoption. So we have a few different ideas that we're going to start trying to get animals out.
Okay. Do you have any idea about why there's this kind of radical increase in the number of animals you cared for last year compared to prior years?
Right now, to my knowledge, Shelter Animals Count is collecting all of that information, and then they're analyzing the data to see if there's specific trends. So on the surrender form, you know, what was marked that indicated these animals needed to be surrendered. Locally here, we weren't seeing a huge trend. A lot of our holds that we do have animals coming in for being on hold are due to their owners facing housing issues. But at least thankfully for the most recent surrenders, housing was not an issue.
I was just wondering about this jump from 195 to 301 from 2022 to 2023.
Oh, you know, that might be a mistype that was copied and pasted. I do apologize. I will have to go back and clarify. But this year, our biggest intake, I have the bar graphs for our 2023 look back, and it was stray dogs. They did decrease. And then after that, it was holds for the community. So we were having multiple animals either seized or on hold. You can see that big jump in October. We had 13 dogs from one trailer. It was 3 adult dogs and 10 puppies that came in one day.
All right.
So just a couple of things. One of the things that our animal shelter manager and I have talked about, which is really important, the partnerships are really important because we will take animals and we rely on other shelters to help us when we are over capacity or we need referrals. The answer about the increase just collectively across the board as far as animals up for adoption, part of it is due to a lot of people were able to work at home during COVID, and now some people are being asked to go back into the office and are finding collectively, like just data across the country, that there are more animals being put up for adoption just collectively because people are finding that they're not able to be at home all day with their animals anymore. So That doesn't necessarily explain our population, but it explains sort of the trend nationwide for shelters being over capacity.
Interesting. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Let's see. They're good, okay. Deputy City Clerk licenses report.
I only have three main things, and the Golden Borough is still working on getting their license transferred from the Lundin, so they're operating on a temporary liquor license. They're working with an attorney to make sure everything is going smoothly. The Roots RX cultivation facility is going to be closing, within the next couple of months. So we will only have one cultivation facility within the city after that. And then, I know that everybody's waiting on their business licenses and I want everybody to know they're coming. It's a process, but they're on their way.
And the last thing is you will be putting in the newsletter that
Oh,
the
yeah.
deadline,
It's January 31st.
so
Yeah.
businesses, please pay your annual business licensing fee before January 31st. And after our deputy city clerk gets through that, she is promptly plopped into.
Short-term rentals will be the next round of licenses that we do.
Never a dull moment.
No.
Okay, questions for,
Yeah, just one. You have on here, work sessions we scheduled to discuss new rental cap.
Oh, I think we were gonna talk about that, Chapin, the STR cap.
Yeah, that, we have the draft ordinance from the city attorney, we just received that. And so it's just a matter of, internally reviewing that, going back and forth with the city attorney on whether I think the council's request was like 3 different versions, right now we have one version. And then we have to schedule, that to come back as an ordinance, for 2 readings.
Will we still need to do another work session?
No,
Okay. we've never-
Yeah,
I was gonna say, we
Yeah,
thought we did the
forget
last.
Yeah, I was pretty sure we discussed that one today.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, ambitiously, and we need to talk about this, if this timeline works. Tentatively, we have it on as a first reading for the February 6th agenda, but that agenda is also quite full. So you and I can talk about that, but we do have it as a placeholder.
Okay, other questions? All right, building department, do you just wanna combine building and planning, the building department reports we just get and.
sure. The main comment on the main notation on the building department report would be, it is down in terms of the total building valuation. So for 2023, you'll see in your packet, bottom right-hand corner of that page, it's 4.3 million was the building valuation for this past year. Last year in 2022, that valuation was 7.7 million. I believe that decrease is almost solely related to enforcement of the rail yards. We were not issuing building permits for most of 2023 due to our enforcement on various items that most of you are aware of. And so that most likely affected valuation. I would expect that as we get the developer hopefully into full compliance soon, that you'll see a lot more building construction going through at the rail yards in terms of increasing the valuation.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting. Okay, and then on to
Sure.
your wheelhouse.
Right. All right, so, couple interesting pre-application meetings that I've had that, I'll just summarize it. I did have a pre-application meeting, with the new property owners of the American Eagle Road, which is a property that stretches, essentially from 12th Street to 8th Street on the east side and forms the eastern, essentially the city limits, forms the eastern city limits. That on the original historic plat was platted as a load and not a block, not without a block and lot description. It's all under one ownership. And so the new property owner who's recently acquired that is interested in building some residential development on that property, but also interested in building some affordable housing on that property. So the portion of that property is within Lake County. And so they have some internal lot lines within that property. So in order to In order to remove those property lines, they would need to go through a city subdivision process so they can internally develop. And they're not looking at a lot of development, but they do want to, it's a large property, they do want to develop it. And so they're interested in potentially annexing the remaining piece of that property into the city, so they can go through a city subdivision process to remove all those internal lot lines. And then establish new lot lines and develop the property. And with, as part of the annexation agreement, potentially having some affordable housing commitment. So the early stages of that, but it's very interesting. Just wanted to bring that to the council's attention. We have let's see here, we now have an active application for, jumping ahead. We had a pre-application today, with an architect who wants to rehabilitate a building on, East Sixth Street at 200 East Sixth Street. So that's the old Schrader's Market on the corner there. And I'm really excited to see what that potential rehabilitation, could be in terms of lightening that corner. I did provide all the information to the property owner of 821 Harrison for their administrative short-term rental permit. That's required by planning or now that they've rezoned that property, in order for them to get their short-term rental license through the Deputy City Clerk's office. And then finally, in terms of pre-application meetings, I've had several meetings with the I guess upcoming property owner of the Rail Yard Block 1, Lot 1 Hotel. They've hired a design team and they're working out for all the details to develop a hotel on that corner of property of Poplar Street and 12th Street. In terms of active applications, we do have a certificate of appropriateness application for 109 Oak Street, proposed demolition of that historic building. So if you are approached by any members of the public or just regarding that application, that will go through HPC, and then it'll also go through City Council and 2 public hearings. So that is an active application, so just keep that in mind. If anyone approaches you about that, you'll just have to disclose whatever conversations you have during the public hearing process. In terms of the rail yards specifically, under phase 1, good news, we finally got the phase 1 PUD, the planned unit development amendment recorded that changed the use of, or changed the authorized use of the Laurel parcel to affordable housing. That was approved by council in August of 2022. And we basically just got all the signatures and everything from the developer to get that recorded. So everything's in place for the Laurel parcel in terms of zoning for them to proceed with their building permit. In terms of phase 2 of the rail yard, the main update is the developer is proposing to amend the PUD that council approved in 2021, which has not yet been recorded because there were conditions that the council had that have not yet been met. And the developer is proposing to amend that PUD to reduce the right-of-way widths and street widths within phase 2. So there's going to be a lot of discussion about that, so stay tuned for that. I have put all of the balls back in the developer's court on that right now. And then just wrapping up, I did want to update the council that we have an updated zoning map that will be on the website very soon if it's not already. And that included 2 updates that include the rezoning that you just approved for 821 Harrison. It also included the formula business exclusion overlay district that was passed by council in early 2022. That was approved by council, just we never updated the zoning map. So that has been done. So you'll see a new updated zoning map online. Any questions for planning?
Is there anything new on the Leadville 7 development?
No. The latest, and I think I've updated the council on this previously, but the latest communication was, I believe, in November, and that was essentially where I was communicating what staff's recommendation would be for the details of the affordable housing commitment and how they would need to meet those various checkpoints in relation to developing their subdivision, if they were to even be approved for annexation and meet all of the subdivision approval criteria, which is extensive.
The new potential that you talked to, the load is inside of that parcel, correct? Closer to the city.
Yes, the majority of the parcel is within, I have the screen here, I know everyone can't see that. the majority of the parcel is within city limits. There's just a portion on the eastern side that isn't in the county. But it's enough property that would, be worthwhile to annex so that they could develop it all within the city.
And is that property just kind of sandwiched between the city and the Leadville 7 parcel?
There's at least one parcel in between.
Okay.
In the county.
And just to clarify, the old barber shop, A21, which was rezoned proposed long-term rental, is going to be a short-term rental,
The applicant has not formally proposed long-term rental for that property.
but he has applied for a short-term rental permit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And he was in line for that permit and will be, I mean, is not affected by the cap because he was the next person in line, so
Okay.
will be granted a short-term rental permit.
Would that be affected timing wise? If we were to vote one way or another, like with that application specifically, I don't know that. I guess I'm just wondering, are we accepting new applicants and is there spaces open to accept new applicants?
That might be a question for Hannah.
Yeah, is there new applicants open? Like, is there people who are leaving the short-term rental space, so that there are more applications being processed from the wait list?
Not right now, I filled them, we took 11 people off the wait list of about 22.
Okay.
And then right now, it's sitting pretty solid, the only time that it's ever vacated is if somebody sells their property, and I haven't seen that just
I
yet.
see, okay.
I may not have missed, I may have missed a little bit of the question, but to refresh everybody's memory, we were going to, if there is a reduction in the number, we were gonna do it through attrition.
Right.
Right, and so if people don't renew, so we have that renewal window coming up, so if they don't renew, or as our deputy city clerk mentioned, if the property is sold, the short-term rental license doesn't transfer with the sale of the property.
And the current wait list is 11 approximately.
I have 16 now, yeah, and I can share that with you guys if you'd like. To see the wait list as it progresses.
Yeah, I would like that. Other questions for planning? Yes.
Chief, and under the rail yard phase 2 PUD, I see that High Country Developers is proposing to go without grid electric supply.
Yes.
Okay, is that
The city does not
Common.
have any regulations on which utilities are required to be provided. In other words, there's not a requirement to be all electric or all requirement to supply both electric and natural gas. We do have subdivision requirements that get close to that, but I've read the language multiple times and there's nothing to prohibit a developer from providing electric if it can be provided on site. Essentially, that's from a subdivision perspective, okay? From a building code perspective, that's a completely different story. I'm not the administrator of building code, so I don't know all the code criteria for obtaining a building permit with a property that only has natural gas piped to it, and then you have solar panels provided on site. So this is something that I've communicated multiple times to the builder that they have to vet with the building permit in terms of being able to obtain a building permit and certificate of occupancy.
Would that be through county building department?
Yes.
Would that plan to use just natural gas and solar energy impact this 10-foot right of way that XL requires, or would that requirement still be in place? Would they still need that?
They still need and that's all part of the reason why the developer is proposing to, in the zoning document, the PUD, to reduce the right of way widths, because they still have to provide an easement for the natural gas line. They have to have certain clearances from structures for their equipment and their lines. But it's not as an intensive of a requirement as the width that would be needed for electric.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for planning?
Some of the context of that is that we shut phase 2 down in terms of enforcement because infrastructure was being installed before plats were recorded, subdivision improvement agreement was recorded for phase 2, et cetera. And the code says that you can't do that, and so we did have to communicate to the developer that they are required to cease construction. So there are lines in the ground, for water sewer, there are partially installed gas lines. So part of the developer's proposal is to match his alignments, match the zoning documents with alignments that are installed in the ground.
Okay. Anyone else?
There's a note in here that says, about developing a community housing chapter. What, is that a chapter in a book of code or?
In the zoning code.
Okay.
The quick background on that is that, we have come in front of the city council for a work session with the planning and zoning commission for a proposed code amendment that would allow a density bonus for developers, builders who are interested in, restricting a portion of their number of units that they're constructing to affordable housing. And, so it's called incentive zoning. But if they were to receive that density bonus and they, as part of their commitment to build affordable housing, you would then have to have restrictions on what are all the details, the terms and conditions of that affordable housing, that community housing. And so we need a community housing chapter, because right at this point, we don't have a requirement in the code for any type of affordable housing. In this case, it's not inclusionary, it's not required that they provide that housing. Unless they want to get the density bonus, then they have a requirement. So that community housing chapter would spell out all the requirements for community housing and who would enforce the deed restriction, et cetera. So it's a whole new chapter in the zoning code.
Thank you.
Other questions for planning? Okay, next we have December Finance Department and December financials.
I mean, don't take it personally, but our finance director is not able to attend tonight. She was smart enough to go to someplace warm for vacation and did not make it back in time. So a couple of let's see, a couple things. I'm trying to think. She wanted to pass along. She has been working with Cassell, which is our financial management system, on some additional modules. I think we've told you that to help make things a little more efficient. And we have some good success with that. She is also implementing some new processes for purchase cards and for transactions where we submit invoices, a little bit better tracking system for that, on how to code items and make sure we have receipts. So, and also just has hit the ground running, making sure payroll has been going smoothly. And so, getting through the end of the year is a little bit of a heavy lift, but, trying to think if there's anything else. I'm also happy to pass along any questions.
Questions about the financials or the finance department?
The only thing I thought, and I wanted to note this, is the sales tax numbers have come in a little bit lower than expected the last couple of months. Which is really kind of interesting, because I don't know that it's felt like those numbers should be low. I feel like, overall, the sense I've gotten from business owners is business has actually been pretty good and town has seemed pretty busy. But lodging tax was up. So don't understand how that works. Maybe they're coming and staying and bringing their own provisions. I don't know. But lodging is up and sales tax is a little down. Yeah.
Be interesting to see how this plays out. Questions to pass along to Ms. Gillett?
Maybe this is a better question or person for it, but in terms of the lodging tax, do we have a general estimate as to when the finalized number will be recorded for?
That's a good question. I would have to let me look into that and get that back to you.
I think
So-
I can answer that, maybe. I was at the tourism panel meeting this morning,
Yes,
Good.
and, Adam indicated those final numbers for 23 will be arrived at in mid-February.
Mid-February?
Yes.
And this says in Ms. Hewlett's notes that the quarter 4, oh, that's STR revenue, never mind.
Yeah, I know,
Is
well,
is STR revenue, like, that's kind of a,
well, it should
Did she mean
be lodging.
accommodations?
I may just be a misnomer, but
that they would do by next week,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, so what we know that we need to get our arms around the accommodations tax, the lodging tax, and we really appreciate that we've had some folks come in who helped make some calls and find out why, people were recalcitrant in paying and some people thought they paid, but at any rate, we appreciate Elsa Clark's help with that to contact some of our lodging entities that we thought might be behind. And so what I wanted to do was give Ms. Hewlett a chance to get her feet on the ground before we dug into accommodations, because we definitely want to make sure that we are capturing all the revenue that we think we need or are entitled to.
Okay. Shall we move on to the bills?
One finance question, if I may.
Of course.
Why is the city share of the housing director a revenue? I see it in there as a revenue.
Oh, okay. That gets kind of complicated.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Wellhand is on this meeting, so if I misstate this, she can correct me. But the city cut a check to the Regional Housing Authority for the payment of the Regional Housing Director's salary. And they decided to do their finances a little differently. So what they did is they gave us that money back. And then we cut a check to the county because they were gonna run their funds to the county. So I believe why you're seeing that as revenue is they gave us the check back and we needed to accounting wise account for that.
My understanding is that a big part of that reason is because the Regional Housing Authority had a bank account. Which is now closed, but we had to close the bank account, so then we had like 50,000-ish from the city. Which we returned and then billed through the county for.
Well, two things. I think that was the contribution to the Regional Housing Authority. That was a pre-credit of 2A money, the lodging money. So we advanced $50,000, I think, last February.
Yeah.
To the Regional Housing Authority, and then we also have the 70,000 that's for the director's salary. So I think all that came back to us, and so we needed to account for it coming back to us. And then, but we essentially cut another check to the county. So came in and went out again.
There are no straight lines. Okay, other questions before going on to the bills? The bills that have already been paid, any questions that have come up for you in reviewing them?
The one thing that was flagged last time was the
Park bathroom. thing.
right, I was trying to figure out the best way to, so the city's restrooms. And I did talk to our streets department manager about that and said, we in the winter, we were not needing the restrooms to be cleaned twice a day. So what we're doing is we're having them cleaned at the end of the day and locked at the end of, the day, and so that they would be cleaned the next morning. So you will see a reduction in that cost.
Thank you. Thank you for looking into that.
But then there's busy times when we might have somebody needing to be come in, but our contractor was very understanding about that request, so.
I have one question, regarding the police department or Verizon, just wanting to know looks like refund amount of $423 was just administrative error or?
I do not know.
Cool.
I will find out.
Other billing questions? No, I would entertain a motion to pay these bills.
Well, then that moves to pay bills.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Abstentions? Okay, all were in favor.
And Mayor, I did get a request from our animal shelter manager. She does have those annual numbers. If you all are interested, she could give you those now.
Sure. Yes.
Hi all, I apologize for that. I was originally trying to break the numbers down into categories, but grand total per our PACFA reports for 2022 was 296. 2021 was 294, and 2020 during the pandemic was 173.
Okay. So it wasn't quite that
Yeah.
astonishing jump. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Well, thank you for those department reports. They're always my favorite. And if they have not discouraged any of either of our Ward 2 candidates from persisting, then let's move forward. Presentations and discussions. Mr. Council.
You're discouraging, but I will. Good segue. Don't you get some stickers like always? Thank you. Briar, I love it when you put them on his cruisers. Well, again, it's cool, back-to-back weeks. It's been a bit, my name is Duffy Council with Leadville Ski Touring. We're in the third year of our 3-year permit, but I've made it a point every year to try to come back just to make sure there aren't any questions, ideas, room for improvement, etc. from last year. Personally, goal would sure be to do same. Not confident that being 76 and not 75th is gonna happen. Whether, I don't know, small ears, but certainly we'll try to get with police, fire. So Tony in the hallway before he was excused and kind of did the same, yeah, same. And so but everybody's just so supportive and great. I'd like to think we've got things moving on a pretty simple path. I had a 90-minute presentation all planned out, but it seems like you got enough. Yeah, right. I basically come see if anybody has any questions,
Questions for Mr. Council?
comments, concerns, all in order.
And Duffy, just one question. It said you included the 2021 certificate of insurance.
Probably just because we have
That's
last year.
old CP, but yeah, that's
Same
my
time.
fault, we have,
Oh,
he gives us
Okay.
new ones every year, so it's just the TP was approved for 3 years. So it's already been approved, so the only thing he's required to do each year is tell me the dates and new insurance, so.
Oh, yeah, it's March 2nd and 3rd. That's
We
why.
are good.
Yeah. And Cisco, like we just started, you can't typically go for insurance in 2024 until they get January, so I literally just last night got the application. Same, like, hey, would you send me last year, so I have to redraw a diagram of it again and use nearly identical, it should be nearly identical event from a logistics standpoint.
And it usually comes in February.
Yeah, we'll have it weeks before, and then we'll name additionally insured Boom Days, because we use their announcer stand. City of Leadville, obviously, and a couple bank and trust, just because we're adjacent to their property with the merch tent and the announcer stand, if it were, fall over.
I have one question and one request.
Oh.
So one question is, are you planning to stream this again?
Great question. We're gonna touch on that last. Good news, bad news. Things seem to have a course that they run. You know, just this last weekend was in Ridgeway for the San Juan Ski Touring event. What a production. You know, I mean, jumbotrons and instant replay and all sorts of really cool stuff. It's getting crazy expensive. You know, it was great during COVID time, brief history, where like, we still want to do this, but how do we somehow still get it out there? We did it, cost us, Leadville Ski Touring $6,000. As sales tax revenues continue to increase, former Mayor Lobby had great idea the next year, like, hey, why don't we reimburse you for that? And if we do, will you do it again? Like, well, sure. And so that's been kind of the model. So we're not gonna seek reimbursement for last year. If something organically grows legs, you know, like Talis Shriver is at CU right now and it's a mover shaker for an 18, 19-year-old young man. And said, you know, I'll look around there. We've got a feeler out with the Mountain Network, which is where it's gonna air this year, in fact, this weekend. The notes. The Saturday will air on this Saturday, January 20th, our Saturday event, 1 to 3 p.m. on the Mountain Network. And then on Saturday, January 27th, the Sunday finals will air 1 to 3 p.m. And you can figure out how to get all that Mountain TV, how to watch at MTN-TV.com.
MTN dash.
And that was another piece. It was really cool when we were kind of linked in with the Altitude Network to have commercials about the Opera House and CMC and the Mining Museum and HMI and Ski Cooper and Leadville Lake County. And that was priceless advertising that went out, even if it was off hours times. They're like, we can't get that for that cheap. But since that's changing, the Altitude Network, I don't know, if they were sold, bought by somebody, but structures changed there. And it's a huge draw of bandwidth, you know, 6-ish weeks out. I don't know, knowing what I know, and not having a COVID year like we did in 19, I don't know that I'm capable to drum up just some old broadcast, and I don't wanna do something that's half rate either.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be all ears to see if there's a bunch of, oh, why didn't you do it? That was really great. Then we'll pursue and see what it is for next year. But from 6, last year 7, we ate another $1,000 of that, which is fine. And this year they want like 11, you know, so that price for me is getting out of 11. Yeah. Yeah, set your DVRs to figure out MTN-TV.com.
Okay. Great. My request is that if you have a website or on your Facebook page this year, if you could make sure that it's advertised that it's a dog-free event, not ski joring in the past, but last summer we had a different event that was also dog-free and there were signs put up and everything, but I did run into a couple who had tried to do their homework. They came from out of town and they got up here and they didn't see anything on the website about dog-free and they were like, oh, you know, we could have done something different, and then they had to deal with it.
Well, yeah, I'll make sure to scour that and, you know, we put up the posters around town and try to do a Facebook post in advance and newspaper ads and all that type of stuff. The Outlaw Ken Chavez last year was great, was great. We did have a spectator who had an autistic child. I don't remember if it was a Labradoodle or what kind of dog, it was a big dog. But obviously, a service animal, so I'm a big believer in they are afforded the same rights as the person tending to them, and so we made an exception, and they don't wanna be close to the action, right? The right folks with the right animals, and you see it at other events, you know, so it's a really good fundamental, safety measure to have in place that if necessary, you can make exceptions to.
Thank you so much. Do you have to worry about drones at the event?
We don't have to worry about, you know, it was several years ago, we started getting into no dogs, all right, let's bring in no drones, all right, what's next, no guns, all right, well, what are they? You're not allowed to fly a drone over Harrison Avenue at any time that you just feel like flying a drone over Harrison Avenue, more just, ski tour fans are a crazy bunch too. And so the more you can tell them that they're not supposed to do in advance, it hasn't been a problem so far. And I hope it isn't, you know. We'll hope Jeff Dow comes back to town, see how he says, Duff, if I see the drones, I'll get my shotgun.
I think so.
Then we got another, right?
Yeah, Silverton had an issue with drones 3 or 4
How's
years
that?
ago for their ski touring event.
Yeah, but then you wanna know what's funny, Rebecca, is at San Juan Ski Journey this last weekend, and it's awesome footage. They had drones flying all over the place.
Oh, really?
Well, a drone, one, sponsors the event with their broadcast, and it yielded some really cool.
Does that noise bother the horses at all?
I've never been a horse, so I can't sing. Yeah, I'm on the roll. Some of them maybe. Some of them maybe, debatable even still this day, that incident with Savannah McCarthy and Tank in Silverton. I'm kind of better safe than sorry, and if we don't need it, you know, when the Wrangler Network was here and doing their footage and their work, we did have drones prior to the event, there were no horses on the avenue, you know, for a couple of shots for the footage they want to put together. I don't see it as necessary. I don't want to take a chance in our arena. It's very similar to Silverton's, that we have any kind of incident, so.
Okay.
I don't need drones, do you?
No,
Alright.
sir. I have one important question.
Ooh,
Is there gonna be a flyover? I mean, maybe you can't
Greg
tell
was,
us.
if Greg was still here, he'd tell you, my response to that is always, I'm sorry, but that's classified. Yeah, and I truly don't know. Yeah, I truly don't know.
Yeah.
You know, last year I will say that I did see Lieutenant Colonel Mark Cleveland and Major Brian Lowe with the 10th Mountain Division and the Army National Guard put in a form on request for air support to Leadville for its 75th. It was awesome to see that document, but I don't know. I don't know. If you see them in their fatigues ever, right, when they fly in the airport to go by Melanzana's, then stop and grab a hand. Cause that's bad, that happened last year, a couple of flyboys of the Black Hawk were buying their Melanzana in their fatigues, like no appointment needed, right? And so said, hey, would you mind flying over the track afterwards, on your way out of here? And they said, sure. So just ask them.
Yeah, I think they stopped me and asked me, they said something about the Brussels sprouts. And I said, what? And they said, where are the Brussels? And I said, that's exactly what I said. You wanna go all the way down the end of the street, they're Tennessee Pets.
Yeah.
Fly a few blocks.
Yeah, that's right. Just give you 0.1 seconds.
Was it cool, Lori? Did you see them?
I saw the guys in their fatigues coming out of Melanzana. That's where they stopped me.
Awesome.
No, but I saw the flyover. I just had my fingers crossed. That's all I have to say.
Me too. Imagine if you're a cowgirl.
Okay,
I have one question.
yes, sir.
Will there be an open division this year?
That's a great question, Tim. For those of you sport, open, legends, divisions, it's a ever-changing ski tour world. You know, we're one of the last events, having been on the circuit for the last 15 years. I've seen it skinned every different way. It kind of depends on who can come, you know, whose horse doesn't come out lame, who hasn't broken something that prevents them from doing it the rest of the season. I would love to see an open and sport division return. But we kind of got to see last year with the tough part, we didn't have any open skiers. There wasn't a single, maybe one could have handled some of those 8 and 10 foot jumps we used to make. We might be in a couple of years period where we gotta trick them, coax them, encourage them, support them to get back up to those levels. But that's certainly our goal every year, is to have 2 distinct tracks, 2 distinct divisions. It's kind of like the Legends. Legends grows and then when the old guys get old enough that they don't even be the Legends anymore until some former competitors turn into Legends. Yeah, I wish I knew. The answer is stay tuned.
Other questions from the council?
Yeah, that's long.
Okay. And this is why we have you back every year.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. I share your enthusiasm for it. I'm really privileged to have so many people on the city and the county and the entire community of Leadville and Lake County side. Things just sort of happen too, just in case anybody was wondering. It's not just me. You know, there's a number of us. And then there are countless others that just fill their gaps that weekend, do their jobs, roll up red carpets, and that's why they come back. So that would be my only request is same. Cool, thanks everybody.
See you in March. Okay, next up, we have a presentation from Peter Parsons about the Colorado Trust. I will say, Peter Parsons has very generously come up here from Denver and would like to return before it gets terribly late. So he's gonna give his presentation and then we'll take questions at this time. Later on, there's a resolution where we will enter as a participant in the Colorado Trust or not. And so if other questions come up, we'll reach out to him myself, but try to fire your questions off early.
Perfect,
sir.
thank you very much. Yeah, I'm actually headed back to Fort Collins this weekend, so I have a long.
That is really long.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to come out and speak tonight. Lori and Crystal reached out to me, recently in the last couple of months. It was perfect timing. One of my colleagues had actually crossed paths with, the fire chief, at the fire chief conference this fall. We knew that the city of Leadville was a prior client, and it just worked out to be perfect timing as far as getting together, stopping by, chatting, with the city, and ultimately having this opportunity tonight. So my name is Brett Parsons. I'm a director of investment services for Colorado Trust. Formally, I'm an investment advisor representative. So we work in fiduciary capacity for clients across Colorado. And my background is I've been with College Trust for a year, and for the 30 years prior to that, I was actually a governmental accountant myself, in the school finance space. So I've been a participant of College Trust. I've sat on your side of the table, done, budgets, investing, finances, and all that kind of stuff, in my prior life before joining. Everybody has a presentation in their packet, so I'm just gonna go through it real quick. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. The one thing I want to put out on the second page, the disclosure page, is the main thing to note about College Trust and any investment option out there is the most important thing to remember is that College Trust is not a bank. So when you're talking about like FDIC insurance, Public Deposit Protection Act, et cetera, those programs are for proper banks. That are doing actual just cash, demand deposits, checking accounts, savings accounts, that kind of stuff. Whenever you're talking about investing, the strength of the investment itself is obviously the underlying investments. So we're gonna go over it in a few minutes, but in the case of the product we're talking about here, we're talking about securities backed by the federal government. So we'll go over that in further detail here in a few minutes. Looking at the third page, talking about the purchase, the structure, and the layout of College Trust. The real purpose of College Trust is to be a mechanism, an investment vehicle for local governments to invest very easily in a daily liquid product that generates current income without having to do all the legwork themselves. So everything that we're investing in, you can actually go out and buy on your own. Most local governments don't have the expertise and the access to the market to actually go out and purchase all these things, generate a portfolio, and do all that. So the vehicle is just a mechanism for currently over 1,900 local governments in Colorado participate. And we have around $12.6 billion of Colorado local government assets currently in the pool. So how it works, we've been around since 1985. And if you're familiar with what a money market mutual fund is, the stable $1 per share you buy in, basically there's a pool of securities. Participants purchase in, everybody owns a proportionate share of the total pool. That's how it works. The intent is for, the way the structure is set up is safety, liquidity, and yield, in that order. So that is the tenet of public fund investing. So if you're looking at, Government Finance Office of America best practice, if you're looking at, any of your trainings that you do, any of that kind of stuff, the program, the information statement, and the investment policy statements for College Trust products abide by those same rules, and that's our same goal. So as far as how it's run, there's a trust indenture, and that's what the resolution tonight's for, is to join the trust. And then there's a board of directors, that is a group of your peers, cities, schools, county treasurers, et cetera, that on the board. They contract with the firm, to be the investment advisor, fund administrator, do marketing, customer service, all that. That's currently College Trust Advisors, that's who my employer is. And then we have the portfolio managers and all that, and within that constraint, we do the safety, liquidity, yield, we do the investing, we do all those kind of pieces, for the product itself. So hopping to the next page, it's a chart that shows our 3 investment options. If you think about the risk reward continuum in investing in general, less risk, less reward. This is how this chart is from left to right. Now remember, when you think about that concept, you're probably thinking about it in the personal, like retirement perspective, and that is a very wide spectrum. Government fund investing is all the way over here, and the less risk and less reward to start with. But even in this little bitty tail of that kind of, timeline there, the 3 products we have are Prime, Plus, and Edge. And I'm primarily going to go over Prime, but just so you know, as I go through this chart, Prime and Plus are the same type vehicle. They work exactly the same way. The only difference is what the underlying investments are of each of those 2 portfolios. So as I said, currently we have over 12 billion in assets. And if you're looking at Prime today, it's a little over 680 million. So it's our second most popular investment option. And if you're looking at that Plus column, it's over 11 billion. So there's a pretty good spread between who's using Prime, who's using Plus. So your question is probably why. The why is in the portfolio type. So Prime is a government style fund. So what that means is it's investing in US government treasuries, so T-bills, T-notes, T-bonds, as well as US government agencies. So Federal Home Loan Bank, Government National Mortgage, Freddie Mac, I'm blanking on, there's 5 or 6 on the list. So treasuries and agencies are what's in the portfolio. And when you think about the strength of those items are not subject to credit risk under current standards and accounting practices, because they're either backed by the full faith and credit of the US government in the case of treasuries, or the implied backing in the case of agencies. So to date, in the history of the nation, there's never been a default from the federal government on any of those items. So as such, Prime has what we say is no credit risk, and correspondingly, the yield for Prime is almost always a little bit lower, because when you're investing in the Plus product, you're also investing in commercial paper, which is short-term corporate debt, and the investor and the market demands a higher rate of return. That would be the risk premium, where you're taking on a higher amount of risk, the investor demands a greater return. So in the year I've been here, that spread's usually been around 30 basis points. So if you're looking at the daily yield for today, Prime is at 5.23%, and Plus is at 5.55%. So 32 basis points, 0.32%. So that's the only difference in the two, is just the underlying investments, and everything else I say moving forward, around Prime and Plus are going to be identical. So the purpose of both short-term liquidity, so these funds are available daily. So this isn't like a long-term plan, anything like that. You don't have to, this isn't a vehicle you can only invest in short-term or longer-term, proceeds. In a high rate environment, clients are trying to keep as much money as possible in the pool. And as long as you let us know by 11 a.m. on any business day, the funds are wired from Apollo Trust back to your local bank same day. So since 2008, 2009, rates have been so low until last year, the traditional treasury management function and the person in local governments that did all that work has really kind of gone away. But we have a lot of local governments becoming more heavily involved in proactively managing cash and where cash is sitting. Because I think in your case, you're at 0.05% and 0.25, depending on which bank account you're talking about. And then the pool, we're in excess of 5% right now. So it's a pretty big spread. Even if you can only invest for a year or two. So the rating for both is AAAM. So this is standard for global rating. This is what's called a money fund rating. And I want to be clear, this rating is opining, it's a forward-looking opinion, on the ability of the fund to maintain principal value. So this isn't a rating that says this product's going to have the highest yield or anything like that. This is a rating that says the most important part of this fund is to preserve principal value. So the dollar you put in is the dollar you get back out. And that's what the rating for both of those products does. Like I said, daily liquidity, no minimum investments, unlimited withdrawals, unlimited sub-accounts. What this really means to you is that you're used to looking at your financial statements, you have funds, general fund, fire fund, custodial fund, I think you have 4 or 5, what we all know. So most local governments have a sub-account of Apollo Trust that aligns to the general ledger. So whatever fund you have in the general ledger, sub-accounts. And then in our case, so dividends are applied daily. We also do what's called fair value reporting. So we mark to market at the end of each day. So close of business and portfolios are repriced. We make sure we stay at the $1 per share. And also important to note on the safety security pieces. Since 1985, 39 years in existence, Apollo Trust, any of our products have never deviated, neither the Prime or Plus product have never deviated from the $1 per share. So there's never been any participant losses in principal value in that 38-year window. And now you also saw in the notes, previously, the city was actually one of our original participants, joining in 1986, and was a participant until 2016. So you've previously been a participant for around 30 years prior. The other part of it really, as far as the risk, the one risk with any of these funds is what's called interest rate risk. And that's what we saw happen in 2022. Whenever interest rates change, typically by Federal Reserve action, in the case of what happened in the rising rate environment, is when interest rates go up, the price of bonds go down. And when I say the price of bonds, I mean any of the underlying securities that are invested in here. So how this is mitigated with any local government investment pool, with money market funds, any similar investment type product, is they're all very short-term maturity. So in the case of our pools, under the investment policy, they have to be less than 60 days weighted average maturity, which means in the case of our pools, no more than approximately every 60 days, all $12 billion or so matures and are reinvested. So the pool turns over very rapidly. That's very beneficial in a rising rate environment because the pool continually matches that action. The downside to it is when the Fed eventually starts to cut rates, whether that's 2024, 2025, et cetera, the pool will also turn over very rapidly on that heading back down. It's called riding the curve, but it'll ride the curve up and down pretty quickly. Like I said, it's the nature of the beast. Whenever you're trying to preserve principal, then you're subject to greater sensitivity to interest rate changes because your number one goal as an investor is preservation of principal, and then liquidity second, and then that goal is third. So as far as next steps, all the supplemental information is in the further agenda item, the information statement, investment policy statement, trust indenture. The formal steps to join is approve the resolution tonight, and then from there, we'll work with the city administration, get the account set up, get the account funded, all the kind of the back end accounting kind of stuff. So at this point, I'm 1 minute and 57 seconds over, and I apologize, I'm talking as fast as I could.
You're really good. I turned off my alarms. I didn't want to disturb you.
So between I'm not a native Colorado, I do apologize. So between the accent from the south and talking very fast, there you go.
I've got a couple of questions, I think. The rating triple AM, is there like 5 A's in an M? That's way better. How does this rating from the whole range of ratings?
Triple AM would be the highest rating.
The highest rating.
So I'm familiar with the top side of that because that's where we are. So I'm pretty sure it's like bond ratings where there's A, AA, AAA.
Right.
I don't know for money funds if they go any lower than that, because the reality is I don't know any money fund that's rated less than AAA, nor would I personally invest in it, nor would I in good faith advise clients to invest in any product that wasn't AAA, but that is the highest rating on the upside.
Okay. And then you talked about rate of return, and the rate of return is slightly higher for the plus account versus the prime account. So, under what scenario would you recommend, municipality investing in prime?
Great question. So there's two primary reasons. If you have a local investment policy statement that excludes the investment in commercial paper. So it says, even though state statute says you can do all this stuff, even though Colo Trust is already more restricted than state statute, you can have a local policy that's even more restricted. And if you do, and if you have one that says you can't invest in commercial paper, that would be a lot of the clients that use prime. I would say the next biggest subset of prime clients are clients that are risk averse. And they say their personal risk tolerance level is the extra 30 basis points a month is not worth the risk of having exposure to corporation. And that's a true risk. In our case, that's mitigated by, we have a full credit team, in-house in Denver at the corporate office. Their only job is credit research analysis and continually maintaining our the menu of approved commercial paper issuers. But to be fair, the best example of a product like Plus having issues with it in 2008. Colo Trust did not lose any money, but there was another pool that's out of business now in Colorado that had exposure to Lehman Brothers commercial paper. We know what happened with Lehman Brothers. I mean, Lehman Brothers was like the gold standard of commercial paper. There was tons of exposure and, retail investor funds and government investor funds across the nation when that happened, where some clients ultimately lost money. And I think that's just a prime example, of a true example of credit risk happening. Having used both, I've always used Plus as a participant. The one time I used Prime was March of 20. We had a lot. I worked at the school district and I was overseeing the bond, we have a $4 million bond investment program. We probably had, it had to be close to $100 million in plus the week we were home for COVID. And I wasn't near as knowledgeable then as I am now about Apollo Trust. We moved our money from Plus to Prime out of fear of the government keeping corporations shut down for so long, and eventually had cash flow problems, corporations couldn't pay over debt. You know, in hindsight, knowing how fast it turns over and all that, that wouldn't be an issue, but I was more of a layperson. As a participant that I am now.
You didn't talk about the Edge account at all. And what's-
So Edge,
Yeah.
so Edge is the same investment as any Plus, but it goes out to 365-day weighted average maturity. And as you think about the sensitivity to interest rates, the ability, they're called stable NAV funds. The $1 per share stable NAV, they have to be very short term to maintain the principal, the principal value. Because Edge goes out to 12 months, the share price of Edge changes. So there's continual unrealized gains and losses on holdings in Edge. And in the case in the conversation that we had with Lori, I didn't think the risk tolerance of the city warranted talking about Edge, because in a case in point, Edge, the target price is $10 a share. At the height of the Fed fighting against inflation, when they were doing the 75 basis point increases, the share price of Edge went down to $9.90 a share. So if you had to pull money out during that time, you realized a loss of 10 cents per share. And based upon our conversation, the risk tolerance of the town, I wasn't.
What's the potential upside? I mean, I think you said the rate of return on Prime and Plus are right around 5.
It's, so Edge is around 5.51 today. Edge is really a total return product. It is the sum of interest earnings plus unrealized gains and losses that are realized on transaction, is really the purpose of Edge. And it launched in spring of 21. So it's only been around in this really unique environment. But if you go back 2009 to say 2018, the yield curve was continually upward sloping. Short-term rates were very low, say 25 basis points, 50 basis points. In a normal rate environment, what Edge allows you to do in that upward sloping yield curve is to go out to 12 months and get, say, 1% instead of 25%. So over history, more than half the time, over a long amount of history, Edge will should outperform the stable NAV products. But in our case, it's only been around in this very unique, first time in 40 years interest rate environment. So we don't have the historical data at this point in time to make historical statements of fact.
But you're predicting more like a 3 or 5 year window. And can you just give the
It's-
numbers again for Prime and Plus? I know they were 5 something, but that went really fast.
Prime is, and these are daily yields as of, close of business today. Prime is 5.23. Plus is 5.55.
And is that difference relatively consistent over time?
In my year here, it has been. Historically, if you go back to 2009 to 2018, when rates were, the Fed fund rate was 0. I don't know how wide the spread was in. I would have to do some digging to see historically what the spread was. But it's been averaging a solid 30 basis points or so for the last 12 months at least.
Okay.
And you said Edge right now is 5.51? Thank you.
So in that dynamic. Sure. Edge, because the weighted average maturity has been, we got as short as 4 or 5 months when the Fed was raising rates. Now we're out in that 6 to 7 month window, and the inverse of what's happened in the last 2 years is about to happen. But what happened is, so the Fed started raising rates. The daily liquid pools turn over very quickly. So within usually say 30 to 45 days, they turn over, they respond to Fed action, they reinvested, their rates are reflecting the market conditions. In the case of Edge, it was 4 to 6 months. So there's a big delay. So you have to be comfortable with, you're voluntarily making less yield. And on top of making less yield, the share price goes from $10 a share to $9.90 a share. So we only recommend it to investors that have funds to set aside. I would really say 2 year plus time horizon without needing to access those funds for sure. We're now I don't wanna call it equilibrium, but now the market is saying, and the Fed has basically said, we think we're at the top of the current rate cycle, we're anticipating rate cuts to start at some point in 2024. So, but the yield curve is still inverse, so it's a downward sloping yield curve. But the 2-month, the 6-month part of the curve is only maybe 5 basis points difference, and that's reflective of the 5.55 and 5.51. But the underlying share price is back up to $9.99 a share. So roughly, we would say the product is in equilibrium, and as soon as the Fed gives indication of starting the rate cut process, what the portfolio management team will do is they'll take that 6 to 7 month weighted average maturity, they'll push it to 12. And so what's gonna happen is, say the Fed cuts rates 25 basis points. In less than 2 months, prime is gonna go, these are hypothetical, but in less than 2 months, prime will go from 5.23 to 4.98. You can just simple math. That'll happen in less than 2 months. And Edge, that'll take many more months to happen. And on top of that, the share price will most likely go to 10. It could even go to 10.01. Now, we don't advocate timing the market. We don't advocate any, like, this is government investing. This is as low of risk as you can possibly be. But for clients that have long-term dollars to invest in Edge, it is a very good time because it's gonna it's called enhanced cash. Enhanced cash products do very well in the declining rate environment. So,
Yes, thank you. For $2.6 billion, just 3 of you managing that?
Say that again?
$2.6 billion, just 3 of you manage that?
12.6.
12, yes, thank you. Just-
There's really relationship managers.
Okay,
The portfolio management team, in the office in Denver does all the investing and all that.
okay, so
And so, to be clear, Public Trust Advisors that manages Call Trust, we do similar work in approximately 13 other states, and we manage over 70 billion total across other states. And that's actually not background. We manage a pool in Texas. I'm originally from Texas, and I used the pool in Texas originally for like 3 or so years, and I was a Call Trust participant for all my years in Colorado, where I built the team.
Excellent questions. Any more? I have a question, and then, I would value Ms. Grant's input too. I had a lot of questions about how this in the past, because you guys have been around since 1985, dealt with a lot of market fluctuations, of which there have been several since that time, and it sounds like things went reasonably okay. How did I know the US has not defaulted on their debt, but how did our brushes with, or flirtations with that affect either the yield or the investment strategy for the lower the prime or the plus accounts?
We've never had any credit issues, so related to the investments themselves, the firm and the industry's thought process around the government, US government items, governments and agencies are always, they're the worldwide gold standard of fixed income investments. We've taken that approach, and the reality is, having asked those same questions of the team before, sitting on your side, is number one, I personally don't think the US government's ever gonna default on their debt. I'm one person that, many make this, this kind of assumption. But if they were to default on debt, it would basically be the collapse of the global financial system. I mean, for lack of a better term. As far as how it's mitigated, it's in the investment policy statement. If you start to dig deep in the investment policy statement, you'll start to see percentages on securities by type. And if you were to look at the investment policy statement for Plus, it goes to even greater detail. So a good example off the top of my head, if you were invested in Plus, the greatest exposure to a single issuer that Plus can have is no more than 5% of the portfolio. At any given time, the most exposure we probably have by issue would be 2 or 3%. So let's say Lehman Brothers. If this was 2008, Plus was holding Lehman Brothers went out of business, your proportionate share of the loss would be no more than 5%. So whatever we're thinking about, and the treasuries and agencies is a good example of that too, because they're also related in the investment policy statement. When you think about any of those potentially going under, you're not talking a 100% loss. Your loss is limited to the investment policy statement. And in the case of a government default, based upon previous government shutdowns, I think kind of gives us insight to it. Your loss exposure would be whatever maturities you have for whatever department or agency the government did not pay your debt on, for the ones that came mature, or that came due, mature on the 1, 2, 3, 4 days the government was shut down before they reopen and they pay back all their bills. And as we learned in the 2010s, it costs more money to shut the government down between the than it does to run the government. I mean, that, I can not believe these ways.
It's a very rational statement, but.
Yeah.
Kim.
Sure, I just wanted to ask a question about you were presenting about Prime and Plus, and then asking questions about Edge, and do your clients ever divide and put some in one and some in another?
Yeah, so if you have the most common split would be Plus and Edge. So most people want to take advantage of Plus at minimal because they want the exposure to commercial paper, because they want the higher, to be fair. And then if they're longer term investors, this would a lot of times be larger clients. They have exposure to Plus and Edge. But I will say, I did one this fall, another city, a little bit bigger than you guys. This was, it was actually their, they had a utility fund. So this is in the utility fund. They split their investment 50-50 among Prime and Plus as a diversification strategy. So even though Plus is already diversified per the investment policy statement by the issuers and all that, they went one step further and they said, we want to split our money 50-50 between Prime and Plus to also mitigate that exposure. And they said, we're willing to take the lower yield on average, for the safety, for the additional diversification.
Thank you.
Is that all?
Allow me to ask a question.
Other questions? Thank you very much. That was very informative.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
This is fun. I love coming to hang out with councils and boards and in the, town law school and all that. And I am gonna think to go ahead and hit that call. It's over 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
Four calls. And I'm gonna be in Denver at 8 in the morning. Short of the tunnel, my cell phone works all the way home as soon as I get past the 9 over the hill here. So just give me a call later, Lord, if there's any questions. You have my cell phone number. I'll have it on, and I look forward to talking to y'all and hopefully working together going forward if we have a chance.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
That's
Have a good time.
Thanks, good night.
Thank you.
Okay. We have one more presentation from Bellcrest Inc. Really appreciate your patience.
Yes.
It is your turn. Thank you.
Victor, you have the floor. I can chime in, but I'll just wait for your prompt.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Congratulations on your inaugurations, and I'm thankful for your taking time to consider this matter. My name is Victor Christian, and I am here today representing our nonprofit, Bellcrest Incorporated. I am before you today to respectfully request that the City of Leadville consider entering into a development agreement that would relieve the maximum gross density prescribed in section 17.20.010 of the Leadville Municipal Code in exchange for creating deed-restricted affordable rental housing in perpetuity on our lot at 220 East 11th Street. After reviewing the City of Leadville Comprehensive Plan, we are seeking to find a feasible way to increase the affordable housing inventory for Leadville and Lake County residents. As noted in the plan, many of the existing properties in the city that are zoned R2 are immediately adjacent to properties also zoned commercial highway or transitional retail residential, as is ours. So any future residential development will basically depend on the actual physical constraints of those lots. But the city is encouraged to make paths for higher density housing within biking and walking distance to transportation access in those retail destinations. Our project will be located in close proximity to our developing commercial core and be relatively compatible in form and character to the existing neighborhood. I say relatively because we have manufactured homes and Family Dollar to our north and west. And then 1 block away to the north and the east, there's more manufactured homes. The new rail yard development and kind of catty corner is the St. Vincent's hospital condos and the freight development. So we're just trying to fit in with, you know, all that's going on around there. We are fortunate to have received a grant from Chafee, and they are providing us with a technical assistance team that is helping us with invaluable architectural and pre-construction guidance. When we started thinking of designs, one of my main concerns was the preservation of sunlight for my neighbors. And that's how the architects came up with the idea to split the property into 2 structures instead of having this big block in the center. When I thought about it, I have no architectural experience. All I could think of was, you know, like a big apartment block. But they split it into 2 and came up with something that would not present an imposition in the neighborhood as far as the scale of the structure. Looking at it, what you have before you from the south elevation on 11th Street, it'll basically look like a single family dwelling. That's what we were going for. And it'll also provide a lot of light and all of that. As a growing community, I believe that we have the perfect opportunity to consider all possibilities for residential infill development that would allow a variety of housing types and densities that will result in lower per unit development costs to make housing more affordable. So I thank you again for your time, and I look forward to your evaluation of this matter. May I yield some of my time to Director LaChance if he'd like to provide a little clarification or any questions you have for me?
That's all right, council. I can just kind of chime in on some of the background.
Yes, please.
All right. Let's see here. Let's scroll back to my notes here. So this site actually received a conditional use permit back in 2014. And at that time, the proposal was for 4 units. And that was approved by council. And the permit was actually extended by another 2 years, but ultimately it expired. Now we did a code amendment this past summer to allow 4-unit development as a by right use, which would not require any kind of a public hearing process. And this is proposed as a 6-unit project. So the issue here is a density issue. Density is calculated in the zoning code on a per lot basis. So when you do the calculation, only 1.8 units of density is allowed on this site. And this site, I can put this on the screen in a second, but this site is essentially a lot and then a alley that has been vacated. We actually just did, the city commissioned a survey for a nearby property. That alley showed up to confirm that it was a vacated alley. But still the density does not allow 6 units. So, you know, it's not that often the developers approach the city and say, hey, I'd like to build a 100% affordable housing, community housing project. So generally speaking, this is something that staff would recommend the city council consider. The obstacle in the code right now is the density issue. There are, what I've included in your staff report in your packet is 2 possible options for how to navigate that density issue. The first, and this is what I would recommend that we consider, is a development agreement. And I'll explain what that is. And the second is a variance option, which is written into the code. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but the development agreement is essentially an agreement that is authorized by statute. We would need to do some more work with our city attorney's office to spell out the details of exactly how that happens. We've had preliminary discussions, but this is one of the first projects that we've had that has progressed to this level of detail. So we need to have some further discussions with the city attorney's office. But we believe that it's a possibility. So the request is for a work session with city council, special work session, and that would be on March 12th to discuss this project specifically. But I'd also just ask the council to consider that this is one of the first projects that is coming forward proposing this level of detail. And if a development agreement or a variance for that matter is a possible option for how to work around a code issue in order to get the private sector to construct affordable housing, then I think that is worthy of the council's time. The other option, is a variance. At this time, it's an option, but it's not something that I would recommend. Specifically because a variance option allows you to make the variance for the density issue. The applicant would, so you have that authority, the applicant would have to demonstrate they meet the criteria for a variance, which essentially means there's something unique about the property that creates a hardship. I don't think that situation exists here. And I think it would set bad precedent, particularly because the private sector, a non-affordable housing project could come in and try to take advantage of that same precedent that you established. You also legally can't specify a requirement for the project to be affordable housing through a variance project process. There's no commitment. It's totally voluntarily on the applicant. So in that sense, I think the development agreement is the better option. But we need to vet that a little more with the city attorney, but we can do that homework in advance of the work session. So I would recommend a work session on March 12th, if the council is willing to discuss this.
Does anyone have any questions? Obviously, we're not making that decision tonight about whether to approve the density request or not, just to move forward with a work session. But does anybody have any questions for Mr. Christian or Chapin that might inform proceeding with the work session? I have two quick questions. I hope they're quick. In our code, do we have minimum square footage requirements for a dwelling?
We do. It depends on the zoning. It's 450 square feet in some zones. In this zone, it's 600 square feet. Multifamily, which this would classify as, because multiple units in the same property is an exception to that minimum dwelling size. You then defer to the building code. I don't remember what that number is off the top of my head. These units are meeting the building code requirement, but they are meeting the building code requirement. But they're exempted from the minimum floor area, minimum unit size, because it is multifamily.
Okay. My other question, Mr. Christian, is, so previously there was a CUP approved for a 4-unit development. Why didn't that go forward?
I just didn't have the experience to go forward with it at that time. And I wasn't thinking about affordable housing either. I just happened to talk with one of the community developers from Chafer one day, and he turned me on to how I could actually build affordable housing. And that's when they put me in contact with architects and, all those kind of people. Then when I was telling them about the design that I had, like I said, I could only think in terms of a block in the center of the lot, like a big apartment building. Yeah. But they said, well, let's think of it differently. Let's lighten up the lot, split it into 2, provide some light, a lot of green space around it. And that's what they came up with. And we came upon 6 units because we were just trying to max out how much housing could we actually fit on there. But it'll be 2 2-bedroom, 1-bath units, 2 1-bath, 1-bedroom, 1-bath units, and 2 studio 1-bath units. So kind of a variety of plans and affordabilities.
Thank you. Thoughts about a work session?
That specific date works for me.
March 12th, did you say, Chapin?
Yes.
Yes, I know I have a calendar on the computer, just not able to think that way. Yeah. Okay. Is it the will of council to proceed?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Appreciate the presentation. Look forward to talking with you more.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, hang on.
Oh.
Question.
I just wondered what your definition of housing is. I think, and I understand that you might down, but what does that mean to you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Victor, the question was, could you define affordable housing? And I can help preface that while Victor's preparing his response. In the past,
Victor has prepared a proposed development agreement, a draft of it. Of course, it would be tweaked and, revised by the city attorney and et cetera, if this were to proceed. But he's proposing 120% AMI.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, I missed that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks for being so clear on that. Sure.
yeah, that was very helpful. Very good, sir. We'll talk to you on the 12th of
Thank you
March.
very much. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, I thought we were done with our presentations and discussions, but we are not. We have a discussion regarding the ordinance regarding the renting, leasing, and sale of OHVs.
Or, oh,
Someone in packet?
There's nothing in our packet. on
so this is just a presentation, and part of the reason is that I wanted to present where we are on this. And so, as you may recall, our first ordinance of 2023 was the temporary moratorium. And so was a temporary moratorium on the acceptance, processing, and approval of any new business license for the rental, leasing, or guiding of off-highway vehicles in the city of Leadville. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how we want to proceed with this before we actually do all of the work and make sure we're on the same page. And so the idea is to put something more permanent in place rather than the temporary moratorium. And so the structure on that would be to not create a separate licensing system for off-highway vehicles. That is an option, but I don't think, as I make this presentation, I'll tell you, I don't think that's a good option. What I would like to do is have this fall under our current business licensing structure. So right now, a business needs to apply for a business license and, pay the fee and would receive the license. On the application, you need to describe what type of business you're engaged in. So the idea would be that we would essentially put something in the code in chapter 5, title 5 of the Leadville Municipal Code, essentially capping the number of licenses would be the same, the rental, leasing, or guiding of off-highway vehicles in the city of Leadville. So we had done essentially a little, that was a moratorium, but this would be permanent, and the idea would be, the staff's recommendation would be to grandfather or have the cap be above the current number of businesses in town right now. So there are 2 businesses in town who currently have business licenses for the fall, and I don't think they all do all of them, but rental, leasing, guiding of off-highway vehicles. Rather than, that's one option. The other option would be to create a new licensing system and have everybody go through it and have everybody fill out new forms and pay a fee. I don't recommend that option because I don't think we need any further bureaucracy. I think we can do this through our business licensing. And I don't really think it's 2 things. I don't really think it's good for us to create more hurdles for our businesses in town. So I wouldn't want them to have to come in and fill out new paperwork and file another fee. And frankly, I don't think our staff needs another licensing scheme. So before we proceed with that structure of having it fall under current licensing structure, I thought it would be best to make sure we're all on the same page. The idea would be to come to the council with that structure for first reading at our next city council meeting, where we would have essentially a section put in the business licensing section, Title 5, indicating that we are capping the number of licenses for rental, leasing, and guiding of off-highway vehicles at fill in the blank. Now, there are currently 2, you can cap it at 2, or a greater or lesser number. I think obviously staff's recommendation would be at a minimum 2, because we don't want to, we don't want to harm any of the businesses we currently have in town. The purpose of this obviously is to address, much of the stress that has happened to other communities over off-highway vehicles. And I'm really proud of our city for getting a jump on it. Because it doesn't take much, the Colorado Sun, I think I circulated this last time we considered the moratorium. Some towns have been overrun. And this is an opportunity where, as you all know, I had some experience in Moab where you had a ton of businesses. And you don't want to take away somebody's livelihood, but you need to manage the problem. We're in a position where we're not gonna be taking away anybody's livelihood. It would just be noticed to anybody who wants to come open a business. You know, if we've capped it, you know, at whatever number it is, they would know that in advance before they invest capital and go rent a space and try and engage in that business here. So that's where we are, and that's why I wanted to make it, I wanted to make sure we're on the same page before we draft an ordinance and bring it before you for first reading.
Hang on, Steve. So it seems to me that in other communities, and certainly some of the things that have been discussed with the county's issues, is there is a real concern about rentals. Allowing people who don't normally have or drive these vehicles to operate them. I know there's some discussion about the impact of guided services on trails that are groomed by volunteers, and there's some discussion that can take place there. But is there any mechanism by which, if we move forward with something of this ordinance, that we could carve out or disallow rentals, but allow leasing for sale and guidance services?
We would have to be careful about that, because I would want to double check, and I would want to double check if any of the businesses in town are currently doing rentals, because I think that might have changed. I'll tell you, and we've talked about this, is the stress that the county has from off-highway vehicles is different than the stress that the city has. So the main stress that the city has is essentially within our city limits, safety, speed, and, you know, traffic impact. So that's what we're trying to do is limit that. And I think it depends on, I mean, I do think whether you're guiding or you're renting, you could have the speed issue, you could have the noise issue, you could have the health and safety issue. What I want to make sure is that we did receive some guidance last time around from our city attorney on being careful not to take away, I think, for lack of a better term, property interests that already exist. So I would want to make sure we're not doing that. But you know, basically municipalities have police power, and that's broadly, it's not just law enforcement power. It's generally delegated to municipalities. It's health, safety, and welfare. So if you can tie and it's not arbitrary, you can tie your legislation to the health, safety, and welfare of your citizens, and it's not arbitrary or capricious, then you probably can.
I guess well, first of all, I don't think there's a mechanism by which you can operate an OHV on the city streets unless you're like getting from point A to point B, like you can't drive around and do your errands.
True.
And so we have our model traffic code that can address that issue.
Correct.
If we have problems with a guided service or a licensed user who is, say, causing a problem or invading private land or whatever, I guess what I'm thinking is, even though the places where people use these vehicles is outside of the city limits, they impact city residents.
Correct.
Because we all recreate in these same areas through one manner or another. So if we have the mechanism to address concerns or problems with the company that is guiding the service or the owner that is using it, I guess what concerns me about rentals is that we don't have anything. You have a one-time user who takes a vehicle, may or may not be responsible with it, and that person is then gone after they return the vehicle. And it seems to me it has the potential for being a repetitive problem that we have no particular mechanism by which to curtail that behavior.
Yeah, actually, you would, you could revoke the business license. So the owner of the business and this is, I saw this also in Moab, the business owners have incentive to make sure that they're not gonna lose their livelihood. So there are a number of ways that they can enforce and educate and they've gotten pretty creative with some of the ways that they've managed to manage the people that they rent to. Now, you know, if we feel as though working with the business owners to get compliance isn't working, and the threat of revoking a business license isn't working, then, you know, we could change the code and prohibit it.
Yeah, I think I'm wondering if we are going to miss an opportunity to be proactive instead of reactive. Judge Blake, I'd appreciate your expert.
Actually, they have a comment who says the county's attorney,
It's easier actually for the people at home, if you actually come up to the lectern.
Certainly, sorry about that. Actually, today, at its regular Board of County Commissioners meeting, they entertained the first reading of an amended ordinance pertaining to multi-use county roads for OHVs. And this is an issue that they grappled with in terms of how to handle rental units and such. And the way they landed on that is kind of the analogy of renting a car. Effectively, while we hope that the rental companies will take some responsibility in providing some guidance, the general use of that rental vehicle will be as if it's pertaining to other regulations for OHV use. So it will be subject to all the same requirements that any other private user would have in operating that, including being subject to the applicable provisions of Lake County's adopted model traffic code. So because they had the same concerns, we explored about how to regulate that type of a business, where once, you know, if what you're concerned about is the actual operation of the vehicle, once it leaves the site of the rental, they don't have a lot of control over that individual. So, but it will be subject to all the same regulations for general OHV use in county perspective.
And the one distinction was, and this is something I think the county was grappling with, is at the outset of this discussion, so the city licenses businesses where the county did not. So we had that lever to pull, and I think it's appropriate. There's other ways that you can address it, and I think the most difficult way would be through land use, in not your land use sense of recreational use, but our sense of zoning, which is even more difficult to get your head around. But there are ways you can address it. I just think that the business licensing is probably the cleanest way to address it. And I think if we have, I guess the question really is, do we have an issue right now of the actual rental being a problem? And if we cap it, you won't have that problem because you won't have any new businesses coming into town. So if we have a problem with current businesses, that's another issue.
I would be really curious to know if the current businesses engage in rentals or not, first of all. Because if they don't, I mean, I absolutely do not want to mess up anybody's livelihood. I value these businesses and I would like to support them. I'm not particularly interested in having more than we have. And personally, if they're not renting, I'd rather not make an avenue for that to occur. So that's my 2 cents. Also, can I borrow your charge code?
Which one?
Somebody who can reach my computer.
You can rent or lease the charge cord. That's okay. So this is, and actually this is really good. I think this is very productive because getting this feedback from the current business owners, we can, and I want to encourage them to come to the first reading. I think that's very important. But I wanted what I wanted to do is before I reach out to them, to make sure I know where we're headed, so I know what I'm giving them a heads up on.
I guess to start the council, sorry, Cisco. I am totally cool with doing it. Business licenses makes total sense. That's what they're there for. And I totally agree with Dana that if they aren't already renting, then we should put, some type of restriction on that to not allow for rentals.
Gotcha.
And I also feel that 2 is more than enough.
Yep.
What other types of businesses do we put caps on? in the city?
Short-term rentals.
And.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because, we were, our city attorney and I were sort of talking about that, and, I mean, we don't. But let's say we had, I'm just gonna pick a business, let's say we had a proliferation of, nail salons. And, we're overrun with nail salons. You could say, if you can make an argument that somehow that's affecting the health, safety and welfare of your city, you can regulate that. So yes, there aren't too many other types of businesses that we cap, but if you look at hot button issues in communities, a lot of communities have wrestled with where and when and how you license businesses and where they could be allowed.
The potential for excess with this particular type of business is huge.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing than so many of the other businesses that come into town.
Yeah.
And 20 t-shirt shops will change the city, but it won't change the safety of the city.
And I just wonder if there, sorry, Joe. Oh, I just wonder if there's regulatory mechanisms to preserve health and safety versus capping businesses. And I wonder, like, for example, and this is not what I'm proposing, but if the health and safety is the concern, enforcing the safety regulations or prohibiting OHVs on city streets, but not capping businesses. I'm open to learning more, and discussing it, but I'm hesitant to just cap businesses as the way to solve the problem.
I spent a good chunk of my life on this.
In Moab.
And so it was really interesting because, they had, as I explained at one council meeting, sort of, a panoply of bad choices. The state legislature had taken away the city's ability to regulate OHVs on the streets. The state legislature basically said you can't do that. So there was a bunch of bad choices that were left. So the issue really sometimes with the overrun of OHVs, I think primarily the traffic, but for most communities, it's the noise. And it's the noise based upon the size of the engine, that most OHVs, the engine isn't encased, so it's louder. And also the tires make a lot more noise. So what Moab did is they lowered the speed limit for OHVs because they're slightly less noisy when they're going slower. The consequence, the unintended, so that was a bad choice, but it was a choice. The bad choice, consequences of that bad choice was now the OHVs are going 25 miles an hour everywhere and everybody is losing their minds because they're stuck behind an OHV. Okay, so that was one option. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And it was one of the options they had and they tried it, and I think they actually lowered it to 15 in some places. So it was mind numbing if you're behind it, but they were quieter. The other option was curfews. Which sort of work, but then, what do you do? Curfews for loud motorcycles, and so they ended up doing noise, and basically I wrote a noise ordinance to address all kinds of noise, but in particular that. The other thing about the prohibiting them on city streets, so this is the other unintended consequence of that is it means that the vehicles have to be trailered to the site that you take off from. And the problem is there's not oftentimes enough parking at the site for the vehicles to be trailered there. So then you end up in the position of, if you're the county, you're in the position of now we have to create parking if we want to, you know, not shut this recreational opportunity down. That in order for them to be trailered to the site, we would need to start creating more parking. So those were the things that we're sort of grappled with. I think we're getting way ahead of this where other communities have, I felt like in Maud, it ended up on my plate. I felt like I was trying to put a genie back in the bottle because you had so many businesses and their livelihood depended on it. It would have just been easier 10 years ago to put a limit on the number of businesses and then
Regulate those businesses.
and regulate the businesses and do the things that the county was recommending, you know, education, before somebody can rent, those types of things. But I will tell you, if Moab had done a cap 10 years ago, it would have saved them, well, maybe even 12 years ago, saved them a lot of heartache.
I think there's a lot of, good things with a cap. I think just speaking of the unintended consequences of relying on our traffic codes to rein in behavior of rental drivers, especially in our current law enforcement capacity, might be something that just doesn't get addressed, that they just don't have the bandwidth for, and that concerns me as well.
Yep, and we've, let, Councilmember Edwards address his question, but one point we have found is that this doesn't address the locals who have off-highway vehicles, and we have been concerned about their safety and the same issues that this wouldn't address, but I'm just saying, we know that it is something that sometimes we don't have the bandwidth for.
But I think if you have a local, like you have an ownership issue, that there is a way to track that individual down, that, you know, can be considered. Steve, this is a discussion, we're not making decisions, I totally wanna hear what you have to say, but I'm gonna ask you to hold them until public comment at the end, which is just a few steps from now, okay, thank you.
Both of the OHV businesses in town only currently offer guided tours.
Okay.
I've been watching this very closely for the last year because I'm on a main thoroughfare for the OHVs going to the east side. And one of them is trailering everything out to their property in Turquoise Lake. The trailering parking is an issue, absolutely. And the other one has been very respectful since this all came up a year ago, but they are all guided. So there's no way somebody can come out and Yahoo without being pulled off their machine. The big issue in Leadville and the big issue that my constituents have is individually owned units, Leadville locals who are taking advantage in absolutely terrifying neighborhoods at times. It's not the guide services who are doing it. Capping this maybe limits a future problem. But our big problem is people trailering their own personal things in here or Leadville residents bringing theirs up and then taking advantage because we don't have enforcement. We don't have the bandwidth for enforcement. They know that and take advantage.
Yeah. I have one further question, if I may.
Of course.
I wonder if the counties, and I haven't read it, so I would need to, if the county's regulations on commercial OHV operations are such that they would limit business opportunity, like if they're issuing permits to guiding companies, would those be limited enough on potential business growth? I'm not sure. Cause a company wouldn't move in here if there weren't any permits available to guide on the county roads or the Forest Service roads. So I'd be curious what that is.
That's interesting. Let me think about that one.
Yeah.
And because I wanna double check this, let's see. I just wanna see, we may have actually also included the sale, which would be slightly different, because if you're doing guiding, leasing or renting, you would need a permit, but the sale is different. That would go to, you know, essentially, I could just go buy one and then I could explore. I think, I'm not sure. Mhm. Yeah, so let me, that's a good one, let me think about that one.
So
But I do think,
just a comment on
yep,
having guided activities. That happens every day of the year in Colorado. If you try to get a permit to guide fly fishing on any major tributary in Colorado, you wouldn't be able to get one. There are moratoriums on all of them. So it is, you know, it's a user related issue. You don't want to overuse your resource, so.
Your point is that it's something that's currently common in other guided activities.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes. So, yeah, it's not uncommon in the guiding industry to have caps on permits.
So that's a lot to chew over. I'm not sure if we've really clarified.
no, I think it's good.
But this moratorium runs out in,
Yeah, I mean, I think we have time to bring something before the council and, but I think it's important for me to know we're on the right track and it sounds like we are.
Okay. So we don't need to worry about extending the moratorium since, based on the idea that there aren't likely any businesses to move in the next 2 weeks. And
Yeah, I mean, I think you all remember that our prior city attorney said, I think, it was Colorado courts, you know, a year moratorium is the maximum. So I think we're in the ballpark where if we have something for first reading, the pending ordinance doctrine is sort of, I think this discussion gives us enough to argue that we are coming forward with an ordinance to present to the city council at the next meeting. And therefore, if someone came with a request tomorrow, we could say, look, we have an ordinance that's pending and we're not gonna approve this business license.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good discussion. It is 8:30 and we are welcome to move on to action. We can actually take action now, but I'm wondering, does anybody need a quick 5-minute break? So there, okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break. Okay, thank you. Now we're all back in session and we're moving on to things we can take action on. And first up is resolution number 6. A resolution filling the city council member representing Ward 2. I really appreciate the patience of both of you throughout this evening. I really appreciate the extra effort it took to reach out to your contacts and especially their effort in writing so many letters. That's a big effort, I know, and as an avowed introvert, I know it's also hard to ask. So thank you and extend please my thanks to all the people who wrote us letters. I found them very helpful. I hope everyone else did too, and insightful. And so we are armed with those. I would like to begin before we talk about how we're gonna vote, or the process by which we'll vote, to see if there's any other questions that council has for the prospective appointees.
I have a question for each.
Yes.
Like just right here for both of them open.
I think you
It's
can
the
ask
same
it open and then I'll
question,
ask you to come up to the podium so that the online people can hear a little bit.
No, that's perfect. Watching city council for a while, my main concern with city council is the open rotating door that we've had. And having to have people appointed because people aren't interested in being on council or are not remaining on council because it's difficult and our meetings are very late. So my question for each of you is, why didn't you run for the seat? Shannon, the seat that you were in, and then Tim, all the same question. Why didn't each of you actually run for the position?
That's a great question. I expected that question last week. I agree with you. There's been a little bit of rotating between taking over when Mr. Tharp moved to Mr. Forgenzi resigning his seat and then seating Ms. Thomas. I have to tell you, going into the summer, I was overwhelmed personally in a job that is a lot. The things that we were doing on city council were a lot, and it was taking a lot of time, all truths. And I had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Best as well during this week, and I said, anybody who tells me this is not a hard job or time-consuming job, that can't be true. You know, that's not the way it is. And so that's really why I dragged my feet and then missed the boat. And then was like, I don't know, maybe that was a sign that my time has come and gone. I've been sitting in that seat for 18 months. And then as we went into the fall and started talking about things, and I realized that I had a passion for a few of those key agenda items. And I felt compelled to submit my letter of interest to be reappointed, especially seeing that no one else had thrown their name into the hat to be elected. Ta-da.
My answer is quite simple, that I became interested in serving when I found that the seat was empty. If I'm not appointed, this week or year or whatever, I'll be running in the next cycle, which I guess will be 2027, 8.
Well, because this is an appointed seat, it will come up in 2025.
Yeah, I'll be running in 2025, no matter what happens today. But I had no notion of being on city council until I saw that my seat, my ward seat was empty. That's what interested me in serving. I guess I should say it. Yeah.
Other questions?
I have 3. Do you want me to do one? How would you like me to structure it?
Do they apply to both?
Yeah.
Candidates?
Yeah.
Then I would do one at a time.
Okay. I'm curious what your approach would be to navigating the future of law enforcement in Lake County and Leadville.
Good.
Sure. I have spoken loudly that I believe that our police department is vital for a number of reasons. And so I am encouraged that we are in the throes of an intergovernmental agreement to maintain our police department, but yet get the help and support we need as we jump back into the waters of trying to find a police chief. I am so vocally in favor of having a police department. I would also like to volunteer to be a part of that search committee if I were seated or even not seated tonight. I feel strongly enough about that I'd like to maintain that level of interest.
Both departments, the sheriff's department, the police department, are under-resourced. So I think it makes perfect sense to explore ways to collaborate at the very least and integrate at the most. And I would support, knowing not as much as I would like about it right now, I would definitely support exploring, combining and integrating departments where appropriate.
Thank you. Second question, as you envision serving the residents of Leadville and knowing that how we operate in Leadville impacts our county in general, because we're the one municipality in it. Keeping that in mind, what does equity in action look like to you in our community and in city council?
I would love to know how you define equity in action, what you mean by that term.
Yeah, I think I'd love to hear how you think of equity.
Well, I think makes it difficult to answer in what you would like to hear or what you would like to hear from me about it. I believe that equity is different than equality. I think that we have diverse population in Leadville. I believe that housing is an issue. I believe that making sure we consider our diverse population. I'm specifically thinking about the community center or the dream of the community center and making sure that we are open and listen for all of the voices, the diverse voices that we have in our community as we consider something like that. That's a really nebulous answer, I think, because I don't know exactly what you're looking for, but that's it. Okay.
I guess I view equity as a filter through which we view all of the issues of Leadville. So for example, we talk about affordable housing, that is an equity issue in Leadville. The working class of Leadville who live out in the county and the surrounding neighborhoods are being priced out. And that is the Latino community here. So the equity issue here, I actually don't agree that Leadville is a diverse place. Leadville is a segregated place. It's the least diverse place I've ever lived, having lived in a lot of major cities and stuff. There's no African-American community here. There's no Asian community here. It's really the haves and the have-nots as divided between primarily whites and Latinos. Now, there's a lot of white working poor here as well, and they deserve to be lifted up as well. But any issue you look at, whether it's opportunities for youth, that's an equity issue here. Employment opportunities, equity issue, meaning that the Latino community that, you know, drives over Pick a Pass to find lucrative work to be able to afford here, they should be able to do that here. And I think, you know, we can make that happen.
And last one, what are your thoughts on mitigating the impacts of OHVs in our community? Or not mitigating the impacts of OHVs?
I would like to echo something that you said, Councilmember Tharp, in wanting to have a better handle on what the county decided today or yesterday.
Well, it's the first reading of a proposed.
First reading, right, and understanding that and the effects that what the county is doing has on the city. Yes, I'm gonna stop there.
I really appreciate what Councilman Edwards said. I feel like it's the local use is as big a problem as the guiding companies. I'm recreating up on the east side a lot, and I see the guiding companies up there behaving fairly responsibly, staging in appropriate places. They clearly have coached their teams on, you know, proper use of the road. So I would absolutely support a cap, particularly because that seems to be what the staff is recommending. That is a cap on the number of businesses, but I think there also needs to be some regulation of appropriate use of the roads and enforcement of that. For, I believe, I don't know, was it Cisco that called them Yahoos? Someone called them Yahoos.
I don't believe that was me.
You know, doing donuts and parking lots and stuff like that.
I would like to second what Mr. Beth said. I agree with Mr. Edwards as well. My own personal experience, kind of like Mayor Green, I am not a user. We don't own any of those. In my own personal experience, positive has my own personal experience in the negative light has been with what I believe to be local users. While I have not had anything but neutral or positive experience with the business owners, so thank you, don't mind me adding that in there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for either?
One question regarding youth. As someone who grew up here recently, being pretty young on the board, we have a lot of experience. What it means growing up here, especially as a Latino, and I'm fortunate enough to, have grown up here, so I speak flawless English at this point, but English was not my first language. Anyways, point is, I know that community especially has not received the same open arms into our working force, local working force specifically, that they should be receiving. And council doesn't have as much of an opportunity, of course, to do that, but we do have some departments. And knowing that both of you have experience working with youth, I would like to see what other different approaches you would have towards really empowering our youth to continue being community members beyond just going to school here, and not, to the extent we have power to do so, not feeling like they have to leave as soon as they turn 18.
So I was excited to see Paige and her new role here, along with you. You were students of mine when we were in preschool and elementary school. So I do. I know, I'm holding on to that little tidbit for a while. You were, Paige was, as well as Joanna in the police department. She was also a student of mine. So, and I hear you in talking about keeping our youth here. I think it's okay for them to leave, and one of my own children has just returned back to live here in Leadville and be a member of the community. So I think having forward thinking, making sure that our hiring practices in the community align with that, and that we put Paige Beal, is that her other name, Beal? Paige Beal in a position to be able to speak with our youth at the career fairs and to reach out to the school district to find those. That is my job in Eagle County School District. So I have lots of experience with that and talking through making sure that we are growing our own, and I think that's super important.
As I addressed in my letter and spoke to you last week, I've spent my entire working life since I moved here, trying to lift up the Leadville. Primarily, I was working with K-6, and most of those kids are now aging into high school and college age. And I think what Ben Cairns is doing at CMC with workforce training is a great step forward. But as we consider how Leadville is growing, in order for Leadville to grow in the way that any of us want it to grow, no matter what that may be, it's going to need a workforce that can afford to live here and is trained in whatever occupation they can pursue here. Those opportunities need to be here. And to do that, it needs to, we need to consider. There are programs we do. Get Our Friends Leadville started a program with internships for 7th and 8th graders to grow into our youth leaders that are high school age and sort of get them started scoping out programs when they're younger to help out with camps and stuff. Things like that, I think. We could survey local business owners on what their needs are, because, everybody is cramped in the workforce right now. Hiring is difficult. So those are just a few of my ideas.
Can you both just quickly, I apologize because in between last week and this week, I have a different email account and everything. And so it's not easy for me to access my prior packet. Can you remind me what your occupations currently are?
Sure. I'm the director of post-secondary learning and career readiness for Eagle County School District. Everything college and career.
And you used to be up here.
Yes, before I was in this role, I was an assistant principal at a middle school in Eagle County. And prior to that, I worked for Lifetime Fitness. Prior to that, Leadville Race Series. Prior to that, Lake County School District as a speech language pathologist and as an assistant principal at the middle school.
Okay.
I can keep going. Wait, no.
I don't know. I got you beat. Mr. Best.
I'm currently a permanent sub in the schools.
Can you,
Yeah,
so that
sorry.
people in there.
Currently a permanent sub in the schools. I was a college professor for 12 years.
Here?
No, in Oklahoma and University of Wyoming, also in Larry. I did my own small business startup and managed small businesses for about 5 years after that. This was a long time ago. And since I moved here, I was the director of after-school programs at West Park and the camp director of Rockies Rock Adventure Camp. And then for the last 3 years was the out-of-school programs director at Outdoors.
Questions? Okay. So I think, we've all received the legal guidance that, the appropriate way to proceed is, according to the open meetings law, to have a verbal, vote, instead of the little pieces of paper that we pass back and forth. The way that it's been recommended that we proceed is for someone to make a motion, and the verbiage is under the proposed motion. So they would say, you know, I move to adopt this resolution and appoint, and then fill in the blank with the person that you would vote for, and then we will vote yea or nay on that. If it passes, that person will be appointed. If it fails, then I will open it for another motion for someone to make. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. I would entertain a motion.
Thomas moves to adopt resolution number 6, series of 2024, a resolution of the city council of the city of Leadville, Colorado, filling the city council member representing Ward 2 vacancy by appointment and appoint Shannon Grant to fill the vacancy on city council.
Do I have a second? I will second. Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Clark,
Nay.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
No.
Councilmember Edwards,
No.
Councilmember Hill,
I'm going to vote no with an explanation.
okay,
This is changing my vote from last week. And I've got nothing against Shannon. I think both are overqualified. But my concern was, or is since last week, that Shannon didn't run for her position. Which to me demonstrated that she was wavering in her dedication to the council. And I'm just afraid that that dedication might waver again. So nothing against you, Shannon. Enjoy having you on council, but the fact that you didn't run is guiding my decision. So my vote is no.
I think it's clear, just to clarify, that our votes are not, there's nothing against either one of you, so. Continue please with roll call.
okay, Mayor Green
Yes.
and Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Okay,
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Best.
Nope. Do we need to make a motion?
We
We'll
need to
start with a
make
new motion.
Yeah.
A new motion?
Yeah, because.
Oh, right. Got it. Thank you. It's a little bit of a brain twist. All right. let us proceed with another motion, please.
Clerk moves to adopt resolution number 6, series of 2024, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Leadville, Colorado, filling the city council member representing Ward 2 vacancy by appointment and appoint Tim Best to fill the vacancy on city council.
Second.
11 seconds.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Mayor Green,
No.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
No,
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
okay, Councilmember Thorpe,
Yes.
Councilmember Lindell,
Yes.
okay, and Councilmember Hill. Did I?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, now. Congratulations, Mr. Best. Ms. Grant, I so appreciate your interest and your sticking with this process. You two have endured more of the drilling than I think any other appointed council member has undergone, so thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for your service.
And now the extremely patient Judge Floyd. Thank you for doing this. Must not be on.
One picture.
So anybody can take a picture.
If you want to take a picture, you want to stand on the side there, so it can get you. All right, Mr. Best, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Timothy Best,
I, Timothy Best,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the laws of the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
and the municipal laws and code of the city of Leadville,
and the municipal laws and code of the city of Leadville,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of city council member
of the office of city council member
upon which I'm about to enter,
upon which I'm about to enter,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have two of these. And you sign both of these up there. Sign.
Is this,
That's public. It's all right, close enough. It was the Constitution. Close enough. One for you. One for that.
So, Mr. Best, you get to take your seat and welcome to all of this paper that's waiting for you.
Yeah.
And that's just this meeting, additional paper. Okay. Stop, see, I had estimated this meeting will be done by 9 and now making me wrong, but. I'm running out of time. Okay, so our next order of business is resolution number 7. This is a resolution appointing a mayor pro tem. Like I said before, I am going to be a very different mayor than Mayor Wabi was. In fact, I'm leaving tonight to go to my other job for the remainder of the week, and then I'll be back again. So the mayor pro tem, I would just like them to be aware of what they are going to be encountering, which is a lot more schedule interaction with me, so we can let city staff know who is in town to sign checks or other required signatures. There may be reason to run meetings, and even if I am remote and attending, it is simply, I think, easier for everyone to have a person actually running the meeting from here, so that might be a little twist on what's been done previously. This is, I am led to believe, the rare time when we are allowed to have a secret ballot, if we are voting amongst ourselves, for somebody amongst ourselves. But the way that it has traditionally been done in the past is someone makes a nomination for a person, and yes, you can nominate yourself. And then, we see if there are other nominees, and we have a vote at that time, which I would propose is just be open. Now that we're used to that. Is that a fair assessment? Yes. Okay, so with that all in mind, are there any nominees for this role of mayor pro tem? See, in the past, we would just gang up on somebody and be like.
Seeing that no one else is interested, unless someone is, then please say it.
I'm interested, though I'm also open to deferring to someone with more seniority on the council as well, if anyone has.
Have at it. Have at it.
I said I'm open to it, but I'm also open to hearing if others are interested, and especially if someone with more seniority would like to take it on.
So would somebody like to nominate Cisco?
Councilmember Thomas will nominate Cisco Thorpe. Do you want me to do the resolution?
No, just right now, we're taking a nomination.
Okay.
Are there any other nominees? Self-nominees, accusatory nominees? Okay, we have one nominee, and so for that, then I would ask for a motion.
Luna Lad moves to approve resolution number 7, series of 2024, a resolution of the city council of the city of Leadville, Colorado, appointing mayor pro tem and appoint Cisco Tharp as the mayor pro tem.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Thomas seconds.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Yes.
and Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You don't know what you're getting. Okay, moving on from there. How did we go? Okay, here we go. No, I missed the resolution number 8, because we don't have verbiage on this. This is a resolution that authorizes the signatories on the city's bank account. So, basically, this is sort of a formality now that we have Cisco Tharp as a mayor pro tem.
I can make a motion.
Yeah, would you tackle this one?
Sure. Councilmember Luna Lad moves to approve resolution number 8, series of 2024, a resolution designating authorized signatures on the city's bank accounts.
Signatories, but otherwise.
Signatories on the bank, on the city's bank accounts, sorry.
Do I have a second?
Edward seconds.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
And we are just rolling along.
We still have a chance to finish by 9:30.
Resolution number 9. This is a resolution authorizing the city of Leadville to join with other local governments as a participant in the local government liquid asset trust to pool funds for investment. This is the resolution where by which we would participate in the Colorado Trust that which was the presentation we received earlier. Does anybody want to discuss that or?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sure. Okay, I guess I want to start with, of course, fully in support of us, being in this. Just to what extent is my concern, while the plus, of course, offers more, in terms of gain back. Morally speaking, I don't necessarily feel comfortable with ambiguous companies, being the ones that we invest with. I feel like there's less of a understanding on my end as to what that means for us, and what that means for the companies. And because of that, I don't feel comfortable necessarily investing in that, as I don't know what that would mean for investment. And this is actually a point made by Mr. Prestash that a value is, we want to be poignant with how we invest our money and not just let it go to any one thing. And I understand it's buying debt basically, but I'm still hesitant for that in participating in that cycle, and would feel much more comfortable with it just staying out of the commercial space.
Other comments?
I think that is a mistake. I think the plus is, the two funds are equally secure. The historic return on plus is substantially higher than it is for prime. The risk is identical between the two. I don't see the benefit of being overly cautious unless we had a city charter that stipulated that. And we do not have that.
And I want to preface, mine is not based off of risk, rather literally just moral basis of investment. Not risk at all. I acknowledge that they're equally risky, and in a vacuum, it would make sense to just pick the option that gains more yield. My concern is the moral concern of investing into corporations that we don't necessarily know how they operate.
I would add that the rating between the two funds is also the same, and I would encourage us to invest in the plus investment for a slightly higher rate of return, recognizing that it does invest in commercial paper.
Any other comments?
We are fiscally responsible for this money for our city. Anything that we can do to benefit that is a gain for the city.
I agree with you, that we are fiscally responsible. I guess my feeling is, obviously, we're not putting all the city's money into this, just a portion of what we have sitting, in a account at community banks right now, where it's earning a pittance. And so I do think it would be beneficial to take a portion of the city's, money that doesn't really do anything right now except sit there and wait for us to need it. I do feel a government investing in other government bonds makes some sense and has some kind of a vote of confidence in ourselves. It is not risk-free. We don't have the Public Deposit Protection Act that we have with community banks. And so I feel a little more cautious with it. I don't feel like this is the city trying to make money. I think this is the city trying to make just a wise use of the taxpayer funds that sit in an account. And for that reason, I'm not really inclined to be like, let's go for the highest return, because that should be the last of our concerns. And so I personally would be happy with prime, because I do think that even though they have similar ratings, there is just something to me a little more secure about keeping it Keeping it within the government family. Because I mean, I don't try to be optimistic and say, won't see government failures, but, we've certainly seen commercial failures.
Question. So we're considering investing. Are we considering investing $1 million, or is that kind of what the?
Was there a particular, like, that's what I read in your, was that just for simple math, or is that what we're?
So the resolution before you is entering the trust pool. And what I'd like to do is get guidance from the council as to, I don't want, as you can see, the resolution doesn't include a dollar amount, and it also doesn't include the particular portfolio, right, plan. And so I am paying attention to what you all are saying, and when we met, with our representative from Colorado Trust, our finance director and I were just, we understand this is a first step, and so we were leaning towards the more conservative, approach. And, so I think what we would like to do is at least invest $1 million. I put the numbers in the staff report as, right now, we have probably, it fluctuates depending on the bills and, but, between $3 and $4 million in the bank and community banks. So I would say at least $1 million, it's possible that we can invest $2 million and see how it goes. What I don't want to do is have the resolution tie the hands of us or the finance director making recommendations down the road as to, hey, here's how we've seen it play out. We can invest more or less, and we feel that this portfolio is a good one, or we, want to change. I understand, the two things about the other portfolio being, it is commercial paper, and so we understand the risk in that, and I also understand the philosophy and the investment. So, I think, and I'm getting the prime and the plus confused, but I believe, I think I put it in the staff report. If I didn't, I hinted at it that our recommendation would have been just to start out with the prime and see how it goes, because prime is okay. They should have given them different letters, names.
Yeah.
Because it's, it is 9:20, and we're trying to keep track of this, but that would be, we would start off with that and see how it goes, and at least invest $1 million.
If we proceed with this in the future, the decision of how much to invest or which portfolio to invest, would council be involved in that decision, or would that be just an informational, like, here's what our finance director and?
I think the amount we should definitely leave up to this, the discretion of our finance director with oversight by, me. I do, I think the risk thing, obviously we'll keep you apprised if there's substantial risk. I think the commercial paper, obviously, that there's the moral concern about that. So I would say I would like to leave it to the, administration discretion going forward and bring back before you updates. Now, if the council has a strong majority opinion about how much to invest or where to invest, obviously, we would adhere to that. But, what I want to make sure is that if we're finding that, the resolution doesn't specify the amount on purpose, because I want to make sure if we find that this is working out great, we can change the amount we're investing.
And to that point, and to the point that the presenter made earlier, you and the finance director might decide to be in more than one fund.
Right.
And split that conservatively, however you guys would choose to do that.
Right, and like I said, my recommendation is to start out with the exact. Base. With the training wheels. Yeah, no, but understanding that, we might see that, conservatively, that's working out well. We might want to change course on this, so we'll bring that back to you all. But yeah, staff's recommendation would be to start out with that.
Other questions?
Just so I'm clear, so staff is recommending to start out with prime, which is more conservative government securities.
Correct.
But staff would have the flexibility to invest in plus based on past return and not have to return to council.
Right.
Okay.
And then I would anticipate we would receive that information and update like in the director reports or department reports.
Yep, that would be great, and we probably have to see how it goes for a little while and see what, I think, the interest, the yield has gone up even since the staff report I put together, because I asked for that on Thursday. So, I mean, I think the other issue too is, I don't know why we pulled out, prior finance director Roy McGinnis pulled out in 2016. It may have been that we didn't have funds to invest and, we want to change the course of action. Obviously, we bring major decisions, and let you all know about that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem starting with prime as opposed to the plus. I don't think the yield is that much difference. I mean, you're talking about with $1 million over a year, the difference is $2,500. So I'm good with starting with the prime.
Okay. Other comments, questions, concerns?
Thank you, for your patience with all this, and I'm actually really, these are the types of things it's nice to stumble across an opportunity where the city can do something better.
In that case, I would entertain a motion.
We'll move to approve resolution number 9, series of 2024, resolution of the city of Leadville, Colorado, authorizing the city of Leadville, Colorado to join with other local governments as a participant in the Colorado Local Government Liquid Asset Trust Pool Funds for investment.
Edward seconds.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Lumia,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
and Councilmember Third.
Yes.
All right, well, that's enough action for this evening. Let's move on to public comments.
All right, we're here.
Hang on, let me get my timer started. I won't start until you start.
It takes me a while to get there. This I all owe to Mr. Lavalley.
It's been a long meeting.
All right, so it's, where's the second here, at the 6 right now. My name is Steve Prestash, I live at 131 East Third Street. All-terrain vehicles, otherwise known as off-highway vehicles, hereafter ATVs, under the observation of Wally the Beagle, Elf the Jack Russell, and Thaddeus the Scotty Dog during the period of approximately 2006 to 2020, noted incredible predations upon the environment. The focus general of this meeting was on licensing the vehicle retail rental business. Noise nuisance was a brief side consideration. Yet there was no consideration on the environmental impact. That is, has an environmental impact study formal been affected by the county on both these business and by locals by the county by these businesses and by locals and visitors with their ATV use. Almost immense use now. The locals say a 15-year-old or 45-year-old or a visitor who brought their own ATV in the latter sense, a one-time user possibly, can have and will continue to affect the spoiling of the pristine nature of the woodlands, and affecting such create a cascade of despoilation for erosion. I have an article from the New Yorker, April 18, 2022. The notion that natural objects like woods and streams should have rights is the focus of this article. In the article, should trees have standing towards legal rights for natural objects, Stone noted that rights are always socially constructed. In America in the 18th and 19th century, many groups, blacks, Native Americans, women, and children were denied rights, and as a society, or what counted as society, changed, rights were slowly and painfully and often incompletely extended to them. So now we're about 2 minutes here. So what I think needs to be done is to really restrict
the pathways that these ATVs can travel. So that would also mean to regulate the locals that are here and the people that show up with their own ATVs. I think the way to do this is not through trust, because even that 10% that violates the trust, and I'm sure it's more than that, is ripping up this environment, especially to the north of town. What needs to be done is to legislate some kind of that they have to carry some kind of transponder or something that really can, you can see where they traveled in the hinterlands here. And that way, if they violate that, heavy fines. So of course, you can't get everybody to do that, but I think someone taking a picture of an ATV traveling, I mean, that's right.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
very much. Yes, sir.
Name's Mike Matheson, live at 126 West 7th Street. I only stayed for one reason, and that's to challenge Councilor Thorpe on your equity question. When I hear the word equity, it makes my blood boil. And it's for a reason that you're not gonna ever imagine why I support it. You won't give a definition of equity, so I'm going to. Equity means the inclusion of all. And when I heard your answers up here, or your question, it was all about Latinos, African Americans. Not one of you brought up people that live with disabilities. Not one of you thought about that. I've dedicated my life to helping people that live with disabilities. It took me to call the Colorado Department of Transportation to get your signs off the streets, out of the way so wheelchairs can move. A wheelchair couldn't pass a crosswalk this week because the snow had been plowed into the entry points of all the sidewalks. So when you talk about equity, make sure you include everybody. Outdoor Leadville doesn't offer adaptive equipment, but they call themselves inclusive. I offer that equipment. So it really pains me when you won't give a definition of what equity is, because you're only looking for the Latinos, where we make our money, how we do housing. You have the exact same issues, people that live with disabilities in this town. You need to think about that. So you need to stop thinking about equity as LGBTQ, Latinos, African Americans, and include those that live with disabilities. Because you have a lot that live in this town that can't move up your sidewalks. They have to go into the streets. The only adaptive program offered at Ski Cooper is offered through my organization. So be careful when you throw out that word equity, or be brave enough to define it to everybody else. And that's the only reason I stayed, because it drives me nuts to hear equity and say, oh, it's inclusive to everybody, and no one remembers those that live with disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Matheson. Any other public comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
This is Chris Foy here tonight on behalf of Planned Parenthood Leadville, which is a Leadville-based organization with an office at 607 Harrison Avenue. Each of you will distribute a copy of the letter that we hand delivered to the county manager and city administrator today. And I'd just like to take my minutes, if you will, to present that, since I expect y'all did not have a chance to review it. The letter is presented on behalf of the board of directors of Planned Parenthood Assistance, trading as Planned Parenthood Leadville, or known by the acronym PPL, which is a 501c3 nonprofit animal welfare organization based in Leadville, whose primary mission is to help end economic euthanasia of companion animals by providing funding and access to veterinary care for spay, neuter, and other medical procedures for Leadville Lake County residents. PPL has been providing such services in Leadville for more than 25 years. Often in partnership with the Leadville Lake County Animal Shelter, which we understand is jointly operated through an intergovernmental agreement between Lake County and the city of Leadville. On January 10th, 2024, a community member of PPL volunteer brought to the board's attention following a Facebook post made by the animal shelter. We're excited to announce our upcoming spay neuter partnership with Golden Retriever Freedom Rescue, Hope for Falls, Colorado, and Inspire Animal Hospital. If you need to get your cat or dog spayed or neutered, please fill out the form below. There are limited spots, but additional spay neuter opportunities through Leadville Lake County Animal Shelter in the future. Planned Parenthood Leadville has traditionally hosted an annual spay neuter vaccine microchip clinic in Leadville in collaboration with Planned Parenthood International's founder, Dr. Jeffrey Young, through which local residents are able to get the care for their pets needed at minimal or no cost. These clinics have served hundreds of pets in the last few years. In addition, for most of its history, PPL has provided spay-neuter vouchers to any member of the Lake County community, which provided a $50 payment for such procedures at the veterinary clinic of the owner's choice. And if they can't afford to pay anything for the procedure, PPL will cover the full cost. PPL also helps owners find veterinary care if they do not have an established relationship with a doctor, including through referrals to longstanding Leadville Veterinary Clinic operated by Dr. Dennis Lundmeyer for more than 40 years. Through these programs, PPL has funded more than 5,500 spay-neuter procedures, thus saving countless four-legged lives over its 25-year history. For convenience, PPL's spay-neuter vouchers were made available in partnership with the animal shelter and were typically redeemed at the Leadville Veterinary Clinic. Although PPL also partnered with clinics and units and so were born on the rare occasion that the pet owner preferred that they provide the procedure. In addition, the animal shelter routinely referred people to PPL who needed further assistance with pet care. PPL also funded treatment for animals in shelter when needed. However, last fall, PPL performed a review of its voucher program and noticed some irregularities in the way the animal shelter was handling the vouchers. So the board decided PPL needed to control how the vouchers were distributed in order to collect more information when they were issued, to better track them and collect data on their use. As a result, the animal shelter manager was notified.
Ms. Flood, I'm sorry. It's 3 minutes.
Okay.
But we have your letter.
I was gonna say, please, and I was gonna say, I can't believe, because I timed it and so I'm not sure about that, but anyway.
I didn't start till you started talking.
No, that's right. Please read the letter, and as it mentions, we think this is in violation of the animal shelter's charter, as well as the IGA, what the animal shelter is doing. It's outside the bounds of what its authorized purpose is.
And what's your role, if I may ask, at Planned Parenthood, if you claim?
In the letter, I'm presenting this as the president of the organization.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments online or in-house? Jane, seriously.
I can't give it up. Come on. Hats off to all of you guys for hanging in there.
All right, thanks, Jane. Okay, we have come to wrapping it up. Mayor's report. I really don't have anything because I've spent the week trying to figure out how to use Google and the ThinkPad. And I'm a Mac person, so it's been a big week. We're looking forward to Fatback Worlds, the end of next week. I would also like to bring up that next week, our very own Leadville, Lake County High School's senior Rose Horning is leaving for Seoul, Korea to represent the United States in the Junior Olympics in Nordic skiing. So we're super excited about this, and I'll just keep you up to date about what happens with that. Council reports.
I have one. As you heard, meeting boom. So if anyone's interested, please go to CMC, not the library. Additionally, it sounds like to me, we all could use a lot more information in terms of people with disabilities in our community and really understanding what it's like to live with that. I wanted to acknowledge that Shannon was the sole leader for the sandwich boards in terms of accessibility for our community members, and I applaud her greatly for that. And I think it goes well beyond just the sandwich boards in terms of what our accessibility issues are. And I'm willing to admit I don't know enough about it. So I think it's important that in the interest of equity, we do have more information on that. So I don't know what that necessarily looks like for council, but I would love to see if there's anything that we could do for that, as I just don't feel like we do it justice in any significant way as a city. And it's something that I felt that I haven't had the courage to speak up fully for when these issues come up, such as former council member, why am I forgetting his last name?
Where did he sit?
Cisco Sword. For Gen Z, yes, thank you. As former member, for Gen Z, I've brought up multiple times in terms of accessibility. Towards, walkage outside of just inside the city, Main Street. So I think that's something that we need to take seriously. And it needs to be a priority. We can't just say, well, housing is more important, even as someone who's primarily invested in housing. Especially since housing plays a role in that, major role in that, so. I don't know what it means to really dive deep into what those issues are. Maybe we could meet some time to really discuss some of those issues more in depth, so we could get a full understanding, or at least I can get a full understanding of what that looks like, but I know it's gonna be an ongoing process, just like any other issue like that is. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, so thank you for bringing that up to our council.
And if I could just address the one point on that, we did receive a concern about the accessible ramps around town that are adjacent to sidewalks. And so this is the beauty of the newsletter, is that we will remind the adjacent property owners on Harrison Avenue that while they're clearing their sidewalks and they're obligated to do that, they should be mindful of those ramps as well. And I will make a note for our own shoveling that the person who does it in front of City Hall is aware that those ramps need to be cleared as well.
Cause I was gonna say, the one today out here was.
Oh, I'm already.
After we had that meeting, I was like, oh, we didn't do it.
Yeah, I think this is while we wanna start with education,
Yeah.
really, and last year we had our community service officers go around and address a number of issues that people flagged to us. The ice dam, over by the apartments and some of the, business owners who weren't clearing their, in front of their businesses. So if you look at the code, essentially, it says, when brought to the attention of the city administrator, that me or my designee will contact the property owners and just let them know. We realize that maybe the sidewalks is still an issue, but also the ramps we need to remind folks, they need to take care of those as well.
Just aside, the corner that I spoke with you about the stairs today is, the old Szechuan paste corner, which was not shoveled today, and the stairs are still really treacherous.
Yeah, it was that building had vacant, there's not anybody there to clear it.
But there's still somebody who owns the building.
So
That building is terrible, we're the only ones that are shoveling.
Right.
I know,
That goes all the way to the alley.
Well, it is a new owner, so maybe the new owner can be contacted to take initiative.
Yeah, and so this is the thing is, let me know, I think last year we came down to writing to that property owner, the other one.
Yeah, the ownership did just change.
For the red building?
No,
For
the Chinese.
Gotcha. Yeah, so they have 24 hours.
From
So-
last.
From when the snow stopped falling, so if they're not, we get complaints and it hasn't been 24 hours yet, but if it's been more than 24 hours. We'll try and get somebody to contact the property owner, if they can't find the property owner, I can write to them.
Great.
And the property owner of that building owns Casa Sanchez.
Yeah.
So he's easy to get hold of.
Okay.
I had another additional, literally to that exact same building report. As my work with C4, continues, it came to my attention that building is now uninhabitable completely. And the residents who live in that building are being forced to leave because of safety concerns.
Which building?
The Chinese restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what that means for our community members is there's a 74-year-old who's currently living in an RV over by the
Welding shop.
Yeah, thank you. By the welding shop. And thankfully I was able to help his situation, but there are other people in that building who do not have alternative housing who are forced to leave. Either leave our community or become homeless in these conditions. And even for those who do have some sort of secondary, living in an RV in these conditions is not safe. especially at that age. With those concerns in mind, I once again ask that we take an equity approach towards housing. I know that there are a lot of hardworking people who deserve to be able to own a home here. We also need to be able to provide homes to our long-term community members who can't work anymore, for one reason or another. And this is a perfect example of not taking an equitable approach, having those blind sides up, and that legislation directly impacting people like that. We may get less units as a result. We may not have as much ability to house every single position that we want, but at the very least, we're helping the most people in need, because, someone making $100,000, yeah, you might not be able to own a home, but you can certainly rent. Or you should take personal finance classes, to be honest. So it is my strong feeling that we seriously need to take that equitable approach for housing, as the consequences and the people who pay dearly for it are people who have stood up our community for a long time and who do not have the same accessibility to work, for whatever reason, for a higher paying job. So it's the real world effects of our current approach, especially in the Regional Housing Authority, which is, let's focus on getting as many units up for middle income. And if that means that we can't do as many units for lower income, then so be it. And it makes it really hard to work in that field, and I just want to make that clear and give you an example as to why in the future, of course, even if we have an equitable approach in the Leadville Lake County Regional Housing Authority, that situation wouldn't change today, but that's not going to stop the situation. Or that situation is going to continue to happen until everyone is out of our community because of that. Yeah, thank you.
Other council reports, thank you, Christian.
I've got two very short ones. I'm mindful of the time. I've been following with interest the CJK mill. In case not everyone else has heard, CJK has withdrawn their current permit application to the state, but they plan to submit a brand new one by the end of this month. We'll see if that happens or not. I'm speculating that they withdrew their original application because they got so many comments and they've made some changes, and it was just easier to start fresh. So they'll be submitting a new permit application to the state, as I understand it, at the end of this month. I've given some thought to it. We went to Freight's open house. The mayor and I had a chance to tour the mill facility as well as some of the properties up on the east side. And I think it would be important for the city council at some point to have a broader discussion about the potential impacts of that operation on our community and make some recommendations to the county, because ultimately the county will decide if we're gonna have mining operations in this community or not.
And I believe the county reaches out to various stakeholders. I bet Chapin would know a little bit more about that, but I don't think they've ever actually included like the elected officials as one of the stakeholders, which I think since we represent.
We should make it the people point to have our voice heard. The second thing I wanted to mention was, we all know now that Melanzana is expanding in Alamosa with a new factory. Congratulations to Melanzana. I'm disappointed though that they were not able to expand here in Leadville or Lake County. And I think it would be great if the city could reach out to them in a very formal way and find out why they thought they couldn't expand their operation here. I can certainly speculate why they couldn't do it. I think that's one question. And the second question would be, is the city doing what we can to support that business on Harrison to make sure that they have what they need from the city to maintain their retail operation? I don't know what that looks like, but I would love to see somebody in the city reach out.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
All right, public meet. Sorry.
I'd just like to express my gratitude, Mr. Matheson, for your comments and sharing that perspective, and also say that in my definition of equity, I definitely consider accessibility needs, and I also can do better and keep it more at the forefront. So I'm glad you brought it up, and I would like to join the council in thinking about those concerns in our city. I've had friends leave the city because it was so inaccessible to them. So I certainly see that. I'm on the board of Bright Start, and we're all very excited to apply to that newly founded childcare fund that the city and the county established. And we're working with Berkeley Build a Generation to see how they're rolling out those grant applications, but it's a really exciting moment because that field has been so historically underfunded with public funds. So there's a lot of excitement there, and we've been able to enroll 2 more kids recently too, which is awesome. So we're doing good over there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming. Okay, other reports before we move on to the public meetings planner.
Feels good to not be the only one reporting.
Yeah. All right, public meetings planner. One thing I would like to point out is, for all of you who are new on council, is the Leadville Urban Renewal Authority Board meeting is Thursday, February 1st. It's virtual. It's at 6 p.m. This is one of the benefits of being on council, is you get to attend another meeting. But this one really is, it's important, and in this particular one, we'll be electing officers for the Urban Renewal Authority Board. So please make a note of it and plan on attending.
The 23rd is training as well. Is that correct?
The 23rd is training here.
Here at 6 o'clock.
Yep, Lori, I think I told you erroneously that I wasn't going to be at that one. That's not true. I will be at that one. It's the following training that I'll be remote for.
So Laura's on the 1st?
Is on the 1st. There is the first, right now, it is the first Thursday of every other month of the even months. So it keeps popping up on our public meetings planner every month, but it's really just the even months. Don't be frightened that it's there again in March if we're not gonna meet.
Sandwiches at the train, you said?
Either that or broccoli. I haven't decided.
I'll take anything at this point.
I think sandwiches. Is everybody good with sandwiches?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, what we've run into on the Tuesday meetings is we have a limited number of businesses that we can, that are open.
Yeah.
So we know we can get you all sandwiches. So if there are any particular sandwiches you don't want, let me know.
Okay, well, this has been a great meeting. Thank you, Shannon. I'm ready to adjourn. I don't know about the rest of you. It is 9:51. This council meeting is adjourned. See you guys next week.
So the March 7th.